But I'm joined today by Asmon, Krip, and Woody, and we are going to talk about Diablo 4. And yeah, let's do like a quick intro for if there's anyone that doesn't already know everyone on the podcast. Krip, do you want to do a quick intro for yourself?
Yeah, so I actually started streaming 11 years and some change ago because of Diablo 3. So we couldn't miss this one, and I've been streaming it a lot along with a bunch of other games, I guess, and it's been pretty fun.
Awesome. Woody?
Yeah, I have also been streaming for 8 years now or so, starting in Diablo 3 Season 1. And I've been playing a lot of Diablo 3, some PoE as well. And, well, now Diablo 4 was something I've been waiting for a long time. I've been preparing for this and having a lot of fun with it so far. It's been great.
Awesome. Asmon?
Well, I've been streaming about 7, 8 years, something like that. Made videos before then. Big fan of Diablo 3. Actually, never really played a lot of Diablo 2, but I've been excited for Diablo 4. It feels so weird to be here actually playing the game, talking about it, after how many years that we just got quarterly updates about the game, and it's actually out. It's so astonishing. So I'm glad to be here.
Cool.
I skipped most of those quarterly updates because,
Yeah.
I know when they're talking about gear without a release date, it's like, nah, I'm good. I'll just figure it out when.
No, I didn't.
when
I
it
needed the
comes out.
YouTube content.
Very true. And I'm Zizaran. I've been streaming Path of Exile for 7 years, so Diablo is a big change of pace. Streamed Diablo a little bit, but not a lot, and mostly Diablo 2. So I think we have a lot of different opinions here. I think we do have a topic list that I made, but I think we could start talking about the dev talk because that just happened. And honestly, there was a lot more information and good stuff there than I was expecting because a lot of the past talks I don't feel like was that much info, but this one was pretty decent. Woody,
I agree.
Sorry, Woody, anything that really stood out to you on the current dev talk that you were excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the Nightmare Dungeon stuff. I mean, in general, they seem to have a really nice pace now with their dev talks, and I think they have been getting better overall anyway. So they had these other chats already previously, and they started really, not very juicy, but it's getting better, I think. And this one in particular, I think that the Nightmare Dungeon stuff, the changes with making them more interesting or more valuable, and then the teleports, that surprised me that you can teleport to a dungeon. I think I didn't see that coming because they were
I didn't either.
Yeah, they were so focused on this immersion and traveling around and stuff. So I figured they would actually do something about something to do on the way instead of giving you teleport. So maybe they caved in the end. But yeah, that's definitely a welcome change for most people, I think, though.
That was the biggest thing I wanted. That was on my wish list. And yeah, I was scared too because of all the immersion stuff.
Actually, I disagree a little bit. I think if they gave us an infinitely sized Nightmare Sigil tab, I wouldn't care so much because I just have thousands of them in my inventory.
Yeah.
I just pick up 20 of the same one and go there. The teleport would be secondary to the stash filter size, different tabs. I don't even know where to start with that.
Yeah, but I think they want to break up the autonomy of it too, right? Not everybody enjoys doing the same dungeon repeatedly, so they want to break that up without punishing them for running between dungeons.
But now it's going to be a ghost world.
Yeah. I wonder about that. I'll be honest, I could really see why. If they didn't make this change, I would have defended it. If they were we don't want to make it like that, we want people out in the world, I would have understood that because they did that in WoW with Mythic Plus Dungeons. And maybe a good middle ground would be then just letting people teleport if they completed a certain nightmare level. But I feel like if they're already letting people do it at this point, it's done. There's no taking it back now.
It's also, though, it is a bit of a ghost world already because it's 12 or 16 people per shard. And even our trade chat is limited to the shard. So
really?
Yeah, that's why there's nothing in the trade chat. I'm okay.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it would make more sense for the immersion if you could see everybody, and that would make the world feel more alive. But yeah.
I think that's one of the best things about MMOs, right? Is whenever you're out in the city and you can see everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest things. So it is it's kind of sad that there's so few people in the area.
They could do a middle ground where they don't shard the cities, but they shard the
Yeah.
areas outside. That way you don't have to
Exactly.
like wait for spawns, but you actually get to trade and talk to people in town.
Well, that's actually the intent. Like the towns are more populated. Like you can see that there's more people, but there's still like very few compared to like WoW, right? Where there's like literally
Yeah.
hundreds of people standing around. So this is probably like more what you would expect. I think they could maybe like increase the numbers for towns in general so that they feel a bit more lively, I guess.
I know this
Yeah.
is a little unrelated, but
Mhm.
when I think of town, I always think of like having to run back and forth to the stash like way too much.
True.
Do you guys remember when they added Jeeves to World of Warcraft? Like,
In Wrath
I
of the
need
Lich
one
King.
of those.
Just like automatically. Well, I'm sure they'll add it into the shop.
I didn't play Wrath. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought what they were gonna do, because like the towns are crazy. They put the chest in like the worst location in every town.
Mhm.
I thought what they were gonna do at like some sort of endgame was unlock the Horadrim hideout. You know, the one that were in the campaign. Let us have that, and they could even have that as a clan hideout, so you could see everybody in your clan running around in the Horadrim hideout. That'd be sick.
I'm gonna
Wait,
be
which
honest,
one is that
would be
again?
really cool. That's the one like where like you go down and like you fight that succubus and then Donan's there later on and like that girl is rifling through his stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the one where you don't want to be a barb.
Oh.
Yeah.
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 I haven't
That's
tried
right.
Barbie yet, except for the 25 demo.
I
that'd
mean,
be
it's
nice.
fun to play. I mean, it's like, are you guys having fun with like what class are y'all playing? And like, like if you could rate like your enjoyment of your class on like a 1 to 10, what would you do? What would you say it is?
I'm doing rogue and then a rogue again and a third rogue right now, and I would say 10.
Wow. All right.
That's a high score, dude.
That's a high score.
Well,
I
I
don't
like
rate a
rogue.
lot of
What
things
can I say?
10. There's not a lot of 10s. Mostly
Well, fun.
operate in the single digits.
Rip, what about you?
Well, I played Sork until the last couple of days, and I think Sork experience is really cool. Like it's a nice class. There's a lot of like cool stuff you could do, and there's a lot of stuff that you can try. I'd say the Sork experience is like a 9. It's good.
That's close
Now
to
I'm
a
playing
10.
Necro, and there's one thing that like is driving me crazy the more I play Necro. You have to like literally target the corpses to use corpse skills with mouse and keyboard. And on a controller, it just automatically targets the nearest corpse. Obviously, you can't see the corpses when you're pulling a pack of mobs. And then in the dev stream, they go over how they're both Necro players on console. So this is never getting fixed. Yes.
Yep, there you go. Your controller players getting auto aim in yet another game.
But it's insane. Like it's
Yeah.
not just auto aim. It's not like you can't cast it. It does the cast and fails if you're not targeting a corpse.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
punishes you.
Horrendous. So Necro's like a
maybe
3.
they could increase the range of like the target acquisition a little bit, right? So you don't have to exactly target on the corpse and just like has a bit of like a radius.
Yeah, it has to be like hitbox to hitbox, but the corpses are actually really tiny. So
Yeah, exactly.
And also they get covered up by like every other mob that's in the area too. And like then you're stuck in an animation lock and it's like kind of it's not necessarily great. I remember having that happen whenever I was playing on the beta.
Yeah, that's not ideal. Asmon, what have you been playing and how would you rate it?
I'm gonna be honest, I played Barbarian at the beginning and holy shit, like 1 to 50 as a Barbarian or a Druid, in my opinion, is not fun. But I've just finished getting all of my legendary powers, getting my Paragon, and so like I feel like I played War 1 Barbarian and it's only gotten more fun. Like every level I get, it's just more and more fun. So like it started as like maybe a 3 or a 4, and then I'm like level 50, now it's like a 6 or a 7. And now I'm level 75. I've got pretty much everything that I need, minus like 1 or 2 things.
Mhm.
And I would say now I'm sitting at probably a 9 or a 10, like because I just spend to win, and that's it. I don't even have to look at the screen.
Wow.
Yeah.
I played 3 classes. So I did the first 100 push on a Sork in a group. And so I haven't really experienced the solo Sork yet, and I tried playing a little bit after the group, but my character's so weak after the group push. I would say
Mhm.
Sork in a duo, 8 or 9. It was so fun because there's so much synergy with other Sorks. So I think a 4-man Sork group would be really fun. And then I'm doing Rogue right now, which I think I'm like level 90 or something. And especially with like the Shadow Imbue, that's like for PoE players and stuff, that like feels like PoE, right? You get those huge explosions, an absolute blast. And the Rogue, I got boosted to level 50 and it felt like a dream even when I started playing it. I got Druid boosted too, and Druid at 50 after getting boosted is the closest I've come to hating the game. Like that. I have heard people say it's better if you play yourself from 1 to 50, so you have some of the gear, but like starting Druid after a boost was just like, I'm in pain. I would give Druid like a 3 after getting boosted. So that really
Is it 'cause you
needs.
don't have those legendary
I have
powers at
none
all?
of the legendary powers,
Yeah.
and the auto attack is like. It's like me, but in the game. It couldn't be more useless. So I've seen Druid is like super sick when you have the stuff you need, but it's very painful without it.
Yeah,
And
I think Druid probably has like the most insane scaling with like
Yeah.
legendaries and uniques and everything. And you have nothing. You just don't do anything after getting boosted. Yeah, I can see that's probably very painful.
I've never felt so represented in a video game before. It's like
Pain.
beautiful. Yeah. But no, it's been really fun. Like I definitely want to try everything to around like 70. Maybe everything to 100. But yeah.
That's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like grinding to 100, and this is like one of the things like we were talking about for like a minute before we started, is like grinding to 100. Like I'm 75 and I'm already starting to hit like a bit of a plateau. Like, do you guys feel like after you get to like, I don't know, like 70 or 80 or so, the progression kind of stops for the most part? Because I feel like it doesn't, I don't think it's going to feel as rewarding like getting to 100.
Yeah, it's
progression kind of
definitely true. Oh,
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
it kind of stops when you get like most of your first ancestral gear set. And then after
Yeah.
that, you're only even fishing for like considerable upgrades, because if it's like 5% better, you're like, yeah, I'm not using the souls to reroll it or whatever. So yeah, for some people that's like level 61. I feel like there's this like end game part where, I mean, those of us that kind of planned out our builds, it starts to really like completely fill the Paragon board in like the 90s.
Yeah.
And then there's this gap that's like a good 50 to 150 hours in between of kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. So, most builds are kind of like online at like, level 60, 70. And like you have like, your 1 or 2 most important glyphs. You have like all of your legendaries. And if you don't rely on like a unique, let's say, like especially druids, I guess, they rely on certain uniques, for example, for certain builds. Yeah, you have like everything you need basically. Like the entire build, like the gameplay doesn't really change anymore, right? You don't get this like this one item and suddenly, you can swap in like another skill, and you don't do these like major adjustments anymore. It's just like the Paragon progression, and it feels good still to like get those Paragon levels. Like I really like that you can like keep building the Paragon board and you unlock a few more little things here and there. It feels nice to progress it, but it definitely slows down, and I can imagine that especially for people that play a lot less, it's gonna be a bit of a drag. So it's probably fine for me because I just play all day every day, and I need like a few levels to get to 100 basically. But yeah, for other people, they need the weeks or something, or if they even hit 100, right?
Yeah.
So
I think the biggest problem for me is, especially when you're done with the campaign, you're effectively doing the same content at level 2 and level 98, right? There's not really a difference. So I think that's going to change a lot with seasons and adding more different forms of content. If you have, Nightmare Dungeons, Hell Tides, and like 3 or 4 other things, that breaks up that autonomy a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that just more different types of content is something that's like really, really important, because like if you compare, like obviously a lot of people are going to talk about this a lot since everybody here has played PoE, right? One of the things that I think is good with Path of Exile is that there are a lot of different ways to play the game, right? You can do bossing, you can do like delirium maps, magic find, etc. And like you have a lot of different ways to play.
Yeah.
And I think that's one way that people stay engaged with the game for a long period of time. Is like, this is something that World of Warcraft did well too, is that you can effectively play multiple different games inside of playing World of Warcraft, because of how many different other gameplay loops there are. And hopefully Diablo 4 keeps adding more of those to keep people more engaged after just like spam running Nightmare Dungeons gets monotonous, because that's what kind of burned me out of Diablo 3 is just doing greater rifts all the time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that as well. And I mean, it's also like circling back to the dev chat that we just saw earlier. They did say that, one of the main focus actually is the content, right? They want to add new content first before they start adding, like these other smaller fixes. They're just going to like bring them in over time, basically, right? So I would definitely expect that, right now the game is like, mildly empty in terms of like the variety of content. Yeah. But as the seasons come in and as, they start adding more stuff, and it's probably going to be something like, you have like different side contents to do, right? So you have Helltide now and Nightmare Dungeons here, and then there's going to be the season 1 thing there, and then it's going to be season 2 thing there, and there's going to be like another Uber boss. So I think that's kind of like how it's going to go. And then, like 2, 3, 4 seasons down the line, it's going to be a completely different picture, I think.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of how they do Uber bosses, with Lilith being like super overtuned right now. Like I think they do that in WoW as well, right? Where it's like kind of overtuned. Most people can't do it early. I'm a big fan of that form of balancing. Instead of it being, a good difficulty from the start, and then they can nerf it over time. I love that.
I don't
just
like
having
so
yeah.
Apparently everyone has something to say about the boss.
Yeah.
Kripko?
I hate that boss. Like, first of all, every single thing one-shots you. I don't think that, like, we're going from an ARPG to a platformer at that point. And some classes get so punished. Like, the Sorks get so wrecked. You have to kill the ball thing, and it's not affected by almost any crowd control. So I just don't do damage with Fireball. No way to kill that thing. So it's like crazy limiting for classes, and defenses just don't matter anymore. Like that's like I don't. It doesn't. There's no transition from the entirety of the rest of the game to that. There's nothing in between. We're going from like a 12 out of 100 for difficulty to like 100. It's like a different game. So I hate that part.
I love it.
Well, this may be also just because you generally just, you level up, and leveling is not really hard. But for example, if you would start doing Nightmare Dungeon pushing, trying to get to like closer to tier 100 pushing, then you would probably experience like a similar difficulty level, which right now is not really incentivized, but I guess it will be eventually with leaderboards or, maybe special drops or whatever you might get in higher tiers. But yeah, if there was like more like difficult endgame content besides just the Uber boss, you would probably not feel this like huge gap. So I think, but I agree though with this that it's nice that it's like really overtuned and really hard. At least for now, it's like better this way than just like going in and having nothing to do, and then you kill her in like 2 attempts, and well, then what, right? At least now people have like kind of like something to like, bang their head against the wall and overcome a challenge. It's an actual challenge. And so far, I think every class besides Zorks have beaten it actually. So at least what I've seen,
It's very hard.
so that's kind of cool. Yeah, on Zork, I agree with Crypt. It's probably like really rough. But maybe someone will figure something out. So
I feel like if no sort can beat it, it's probably tuned badly. I mean, like, because you have like there's a point where things are hard, and then there's also a point where they are so difficult that certain classes are just non-starters. I think that every class should be able to beat a boss with like a certain relative amount of ease, especially if these are like pinnacle challenges that everybody is supposed to aspire to. It kind of sucks whenever somebody has to climb, theoretically, 10 feet, but somebody else has to climb a mile.
I think that's more
totally
of a Sork
that,
issue, though.
I agree with that there.
You think that they should just buff Sork rather than nerf the boss? I think that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because especially if Sork just has a huge single target issue and a huge issue with like not dealing damage to things affected by crowd control, that's something we're then going to see on every single boss, right?
Yeah.
So I would love to. I'd love to see that.
I also think it's more of a Sork issue than like the boss itself. Like the boss, having one-shot mechanics, I think it's totally fine. If you have, like the kills that we see, they're like a few minutes. You have to dodge these waves for a few minutes, which actually comes down to like, maybe like 10 or 15 good dodges throughout the entire fight, and then it's basically over. So this is not too much to ask for someone who wants to beat like the hardest boss in the game, basically. So it's more about actually fixing Sork single target, I think.
Yeah.
What do y'all
Um,
feel about like the rewards for that boss? Because like it doesn't really drop anything good, does it?
No, that was very disappointing. I guess a lot of
That's
us
so
were
weird.
expecting that's where Crest dropped, right? Shaco. That's
Yeah,
why we
yeah.
wanted it, but no, it's just the amount. It's just the amount, which I like that they have a cosmetic behind it. I think that's very cool. But yeah, it'd be nice if it, dropped at least a lot of uniques or a chance for Shaco, Visage, Grandfather.
Yeah, I mean, they have to find a balance, right? In PoE, for example, boss fights have a cost, and then the rewards that you get from the boss are kind of like tied to that cost as well, right? You can't just like chain run Uber Cortex all day long or something, right? You need to farm the Cortex. And here, there's no entry like ticket, right? So you can just go in and farm Lilith if you want. So if they would make a similar system like PoE, where you have like limited attempts or like like there's tickets, so to say, to enter, then they couldn't give it like insane drops, of course. But if you can just farm her and you have a build that just two shots her, easy peasy, you just get like a kill every 2 minutes, then you can't just like print Chakos, right? So that would be a bit of a problem.
As long as they're not tradable, is that really a bad thing, right? I mean, if you have a build that's so good that you can farm Uber Lilith that fast, like at that point, don't you deserve to have all the best gear?
Yeah.
That's
I
at
guess.
least how I
Selling
see it.
carries like crazy at that point.
Oh, absolutely.
You could
Yeah,
sell
like that
carries,
shit should
yeah.
not drop unless you're solo. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I agree.
And also, like, I don't know, I'm a big fan of Mephisto farming. So even if it was tradable, I do love stuff like that. I love like a repeatable, farmable boss like that. That's probably my favorite thing and what I spent the most amount of hours doing in Diablo 2. So something I'm really looking forward to is eventually getting so much more unique items, much more legendary aspects and stuff like that. I love like dropping things like that.
I mean, in general,
yeah,
I
I'm
think
kind of against the grain on this one with the boss. I actually don't really like it across the board. You guys haven't convinced me, unfortunately, either. And the loot is a really big part for me. Like, I kind of agree with that a little bit. Like, even in PoE, if it's a hard boss and it doesn't drop anything I want, I'm still not going to bother for it. I'm going to just focus on a different part of the game. But I think the real shortfall for Diablo 4 is that defenses are kind of conditional, but it's so much easier to scale defenses than it is to scale offense. And because of that, it's going to be really difficult for them to not have bosses that are actually difficult and don't one-shot you with every single thing they do. And I think that's a challenge that they're going to have to overcome somehow. Like if you look at like a pair of pants or like a chest, you just get like 4 stats and each one increases your survivability by like 15%, which is crazy. But then there's no DPS comparison to that. Like I didn't realize it would be that kind of game. It made me rethink like the glass cannon passive on a Sork. It's like, well, I don't want to take more damage, but actually, damage is more of a premium than survivability in this game. But then I don't know how they're going to fix bosses with that in mind.
Yeah. So during the dev stream today, they talked about resistances, and first they said we were confused about it, but maybe they meant like the community's confused why they're so bad. But I don't know how they fixed resistances, but the fact that we only have 4 slots on gear, right? Like if resistances would be super mandatory, that would be very hard to fit in right now with those 4 spots. It'd be very hard to fit, say, getting 50 or 70% of all resist right now. So
yeah, I agree. But I think the point that Krip makes here is like maybe a general issue with the game, that defensive stats, especially the stats on like chest and pants, are like way too powerful, right? You literally have like a legendary aspect in one single stat line on your pants, and then you have another one and another one and another one. So I think they just like really overtune defensive stats on the high end, at least. Like you roll like 20% close damage reduction, and then you like get 50% bonus on that because of the upgrades, and like it's ridiculous. So I think those just need to be tuned down, so there's not like so much like up and down between like a very defensive build and a mediocre defensive build, right? So there needs to be like a more streamlined difficulty curve with the defenses that you can build, which is also like one major thing that I think a lot of people do wrong, right? A lot of people always ask me like, man, I keep dying all the time if you build, like what can I do? And I tell them, guys, look at your chest and look at your pants and get some big pants, basically.
Yeah.
So this is what you have to do in order to play the game. And exactly like this, if they would nerf these stats a little bit, then these defensive choices that you do in other slots would matter a lot more, like the aspects and all that. And then you can like balance out the difficulty in general, I think.
That's essentially right what I was thinking, but the the issue feels like the entire game, not just even gear, is kind of leveraged towards giving damage a premium, and survivability is just like wherever. Like if you make the tankiest character possible, you can maybe start to, like, I think a Barb can tank some of the Lilith one-shots, maybe, I think, with
I think
everything up.
Barb can tank most things except the waves.
Yeah. So like that. But if you compare it to PoE, defense is the premium in PoE, right? So and you get damage just to reduce the fight length. So there's this balance between defense and offense as a result of that. But when you have like offense as a premium and defense is everywhere, like I just think they probably should nerf some of the defensive stats like Woody is saying, but like it goes a lot further than just stats on gear in this game. Like I think the whole game is kind of developed that way, that damage is the premium. They just didn't want to repeat Diablo 3 in mind, I think.
I do appreciate that though. I really appreciate not seeing like 9 million more damage with Meteor and stuff like that. That's literally the only reason why I hate Diablo 3.
Well, the numbers were so ridiculous. Like, I think, Wudijo, I saw a clip of you where you hit for like 400 quadrillion or something like this. It was like, I didn't even like, I thought it was clickbait and I watched it and it wasn't. Like, what the fuck? How did that even happen?
Well, this is what happens when you don't listen to the people that say, nerf something instead of buff everything. Like if you always listen to people that say, "Oh, please buff everything else because this one thing is too strong," like that happens every single time. But you can't do that because then you land in Diablo 3, and well, yeah. But yeah, in general, I think that I agree that like it's nice to have like relatively small numbers in D4. So I think that the numbers that we have, like around 10k life, and like you hit like in the hundreds of k, maybe millions on like the high end with like some hard hitting stuff. That's really nice. These numbers are okay. And if it stays around that level, it's will be good. And yeah, they can definitely tweak the defenses. I think this is something at least long term they should take a look at again. Like I think they really overdid it with these defenses. It's nice that you can have defensive choices on a gear, but they should not be like so mandatory that you give up like 2 times 30% damage reduction or 3 times or something, and then of course you can go on one shot by everything, right? And the other extreme is you just tank everything. So yeah,
no, it's a little bit crazy.
I think also like people like one big difference between like Diablo and PoE and why people build defense more in PoE is because there's more of a punishment for dying in PoE, right? You lose experience. Diablo, you just lose time, which I mean, I'll be honest, I hate losing experience, so I'm fine with that. But I think that obviously if you don't lose anything whenever you die, there's less of an incentive to not die.
Yeah, because you just lose durability in Diablo, which is pretty crazy. I wonder, I mean, technically they're both time, but I mean, the gold cost is pretty small, right? I haven't played software, so.
Yeah, I think it's like pretty irrelevant. Right?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
I'm actually more of a fan of losing experience when you die, because I like to play hardcore, but I don't want to like level a whole new character. I like the middle ground. I like the medium core. That's why in PoE I like playing Ruthless, because the much rougher experience curve, like you very slowly are drifting towards hardcore. Like if you want to level past like 95 in PoE Ruthless, you cannot die. Like if you die every like 3 days, you're never going to level. So it's really this kind of cool medium core, and I don't know. It might be personal preference, but I do like losing some experience. I do like deaths being meaningful. Like right now, if I die, I think 10 times, I lose 100,000 gold. Like 100,000.
Wow.
That's it. Yeah.
It'll take minutes to get back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the lack of like any kind of like loss, I guess, for death is kind of a problem for like softcore. But I mean, there's always hardcore. I mean, we can play hardcore, but hardcore is like too extreme for some people, especially with how long it takes to double, right? If you lose it at 100 character, I mean, it's literally like weeks gone for some people. So.
And you lose them to a DC too. Like that's what's so crazy. Like I've been watching these compilations, and it's like I used to always watch like these classic WoW death compilations, and it was funny to see somebody like randomly jump off and just die to fall damage or something stupid. But like it's actually just it makes me mad watching the Diablo 4 like hardcore death compilations whenever it's I'm disconnecting and then they log back in and it's like your character's in the Hall of Heroes now.
Yeah.
So apparently they're fixing that though. I heard that they're adding in the scroll today.
They said that, well, that's season 2 that's coming in. The
Yeah,
scroll of
maybe,
escape will automatically proc when you disconnect, but in season 2, so that is like 6 or 7 months
Okay.
away.
yeah.
But at least
Well,
they're
it's not
doing
6
something.
months. Yeah,
Yeah.
4 months. But yeah, it's like 4 months of pain until until it's fixed. Yeah, I mean, they said actually
Oh,
like
4
years
months.
ago already that the scroll is supposed to work that way.
Yeah.
And basically, then open beta came around and I tried it out and stuff. And I'm not sure. I made like a video about like all these exploits that you can do on hardcore where you just don't die, right? You can like log out instantly, and I was able to revive my character with Task Manager if in the right moment. Like it died on my screen, but I did it with the right timing, and I could come back in, and my character was there. So they fixed all that luckily, but they never fixed the scroll that just doesn't trigger. And now we have to wait another 4 months. Like, what is taking so long? Like, why is that such a problem?
I do not understand why it takes 6 months for a gym tab.
True.
Why
Yeah.
does it take 6 months?
I got it. I got it for you.
That's crazy. Go ahead.
It's the same reason why we're not getting, I think, a number of fixes like resistances. Like why does it take that long? Because resistances, you can do an easy fix where it's like instead of 40 cold resist, just reduce cold damage taken by 40%. Like it's pretty easy. It's not even powerful. It's just not completely useless, right? So I think the reason is, and I think they kind of admitted to it on the stream today. Season 1's basically shipped. Any kind of system change, they have to make it in both the live version and season 1, and I think that's like crazy development time that they now realize they can't really afford because there's still a lot left to do with like the general game. So I think they're gonna have a big focus on season 2. I think that's what we're gonna see.
Yeah.
Season 2 will fix Diablo 4.
It sounds like Pee-wee too.
We're all still playing it, okay? We're still in the bag here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely good that they have like a timeline though, with like at least they're giving us, they're identifying the problems and they're giving us a bit of a timeline and have something to look forward to, even if it's not coming so soon. I mean, at least I know I'm gonna be here to blast season 1. I'm gonna be here to blast season 2, etc. And there's always like, okay, this is coming, and improvements are coming. So this is kind of like the light on the horizon, so to say.
The scroll of escape stuff in particular has been so funny for me as a PoE player because obviously like logout macro is such a hot topic, right? And I've been asking people in my chat, they're like, "Oh, logout macro is cheating. It's awful. I hate it." And I've been like, "So how do you feel about scroll of escape?" And they're like, "Oh no, that's fine." And I'm like, "Okay,
okay."
And I'm like, "Well, but scroll of escape is stronger. Like it's better than logout macro." So I'm like, "Okay, at this point, grinding your games, please just like." We can have Scroll of Escape in Path of Exile then. It eradicates the entire discussion. So I'm like, this is great.
Well, I mean, there's one thing here. The logout macro is infinite and Scroll of Escape is not. I think if Scroll of Escape was a lot more rare, it would be a lot cooler. Like I think I've literally like 200 Scrolls of Escape in my stash right now. Like I rarely use it and they just keep dropping. Like, sometimes, here and there, like, in the dungeon, right? And if there was just like maybe 10% of this drop rate, and I would have gathered like 1 Scroll of Escape per 5 hours or something like that. I think this would be a very reasonable value. Where like sometimes you have this escape out of like a boss fight that you maybe underestimated or something, or like you have like your Lilith attempt where you scroll out after the G-Death proc, which is another topic, I guess. And these kind of things, right? And you have a DC protection, of course, whenever it comes. So I think the Scroll of Escape is just too common. So it's kind of causing an issue with that.
See, okay,
I feel like if they go ahead.
Yeah, I disagree a little with that because so obviously I do play RPGs a lot, but I'd say I've used less than 5 Scroll of Escape. I think maybe 3. I misclicked it a few times, but like I've like consciously been like, okay, I need to get out of here less than 5 times. So I don't use it a lot. But the main purpose is for like disconnects and stuff, right? That's where it like alleviates the most pain. In an ideal scenario where there was like no server issues, no crashes, you wouldn't want Cheat Death Elixir or Scroll of Escape. It is like really nice that it does alleviate the crushing issue. So I don't know if it necessarily needs to be super rare.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to say it here, guys. Like, I know you guys have the you know, the expectations to your viewers to play hardcore and all, but I don't want to hear any complaints from anyone that willfully chose to play hardcore on Diablo 4, given what they've seen in the server slam and the previous weekend and the crazy differences and bugs and like they've had a miraculous launch in terms of like server stability, and still you guys have no excuses. Like it's you're asking for trouble, and there's no at that end.
Sure, I'm.
You guys both did it. So
I
congratulations.
I play hardcore.
Not everyone's gonna be a winner, but
always, no matter what, offline, anything. But still, yeah, you're right. I actually recommend that people play softcore on Diablo 4, particularly because of the DC issues. But yeah, I've been very impressed with their launch. Very impressed.
Oh, I am too. I think that the launch has overall actually been good. And it might sound like everybody always like talks about how bad like each of these launches are, and like going into it, people thought it was going to be awful. I actually think the launch went pretty well.
Same.
Yeah,
I do. I think it went quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean there's obviously things that can be improved, and I've been very surprised that like the anti-criticism crowd, that's been like the biggest surprise to me. I've seen so many people have like legitimate criticism of things that can get better, and people are like, "Oh, you hate the game," and I'm like, "What's happening here?" Like that's been crazy to me.
Well, that's Blizzard gamers, you know. That's what you get. And yeah, I've had to deal with that for a long time with WoW, and so it's just like, yeah, anytime that you suggest any sort of an improvement, there's always some reason why you're wrong. No, I understand.
Yeah, been very surprising.
I think the reason why we're all still like within a positive attitude, and why a lot of the things that are coming out, people are trying to be constructive. One thing they have done really well is kind of impress the community with doing changes when no one like when I played the beta weekend, I thought that was it. I thought like the balance looked like a complete mess, and I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. Gave the game a 6. It really surprised me that they tackled anything between that point and the launch, let alone in a pretty good way, I would say. I think they did actually address many of like the build issues at least. And then again on launch, they were just actively doing it. I know some people hate the nerfs and all that, but I think they've really impressed a lot of the like really diehard players, because it certainly exceeded expectations. I thought we're playing the beta weekend to this day, like just the extended version of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
I mostly agree. The one thing that was very frustrating though is that some of like the really glaring issues that people have been reporting for like 6 to 8 months before from the early betas, etc., like the barb infinite stacking damage and stuff. The fact that that got nerfed like a day or two while they're officially holding a hardcore race, that peeved a lot of people off. Like that could have been done before launch.
Yeah, probably. But generally, I totally agree with what Krip said. Like overall, the balance changes they are doing really impressed me with like how on point they were. Generally, I mean, not everything is like perfectly balanced, but you can definitely notice that they are targeting the right things, either with buffs or with nerfs, in my opinion. So there's like nothing where I think like, why did this happen? And that is a really good like point to go from here on, right? When they do like other adjustments, or they maybe introduce new items, or try to bring up other builds. So that's definitely really nice. I think they have like a good team there, like working on the balance in general. So of course, like some stuff, we talked about Sork single target, etc. There might be like some kind of like systemic issues with some classes or like certain builds or so, but we're definitely moving to a point where things are in a really good spot, I think.
How do you?
Well, with Sork in mind, I kind of want to just add in, like, I think Sork is a bit underpowered, but I think the different Sork archetypes are actually really well balanced between each other. Like some do more damage, but there's this kind of curve where the more damage you do, the less survivability you have. And I think with class identity being as strong as it is, it's actually more important that the class's builds are more balanced amongst each other than the classes are balanced. Because like, if you want just a crowd control character or a burst character with like Sork in a party, you can't you can't, substitute to that. So all classes have this uniqueness to them. I don't think it's that important that the classes do the same damage compared to one another as it might be in other games.
They had that with Diablo 3, right? It's like each different class had its own leaderboard. So it's like you weren't really competing against like the top person on leaderboards. You were competing against the top person for your class on leaderboards. I think it gets a little bit more messy whenever you have like pinnacle bosses that are kind of like benchmarks that every class needs to overcome. But in general, yeah, it's just like making sure that one class isn't like, 5x more powerful than the other ones. And I think, I mean, I will completely agree with you guys. I feel like a lot of what happened with Diablo after release and even like leading up to it, like the amount of changes they've made and everything, I've been genuinely impressed with Blizzard. Like they've done a great job.
I think on the Sork issue in particular, I think I feel a little differently there. Like you're probably right, and if there was a Sork only leaderboard, I'd probably feel differently. But if like just look at my experience with Druid now, right, and Rogue, I had such a blast on Rogue, and I'm obviously going to compare my Druid to that same experience. I went on Druid, and I'm like, this is fucking hell. I hate this. So I'm just like, I'm not comparing it to how fast am I killing monsters. I'm like, my rogue was blasting an entire screen at this point. Now I'm running around like, I'm out of energy. I'm out of energy. And I'm just like miserable. Like I'm me in the game and I don't want to be me in the game. So yeah, just miserable. So I at least for me, I will always compare one class to another.
Yeah,
I think yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say quickly that they could also just like tweak maybe the early game versus late game progression a bit, right? On some classes, like like Druid comes online way too late, basically, but in the early game is kind of like so they can maybe like for example reduce the base cost of skill or give you like more spirit generation and like tweak it down somewhere else, right? That's on some of the later progression stages, like the Paragons, for example, right? The Paragons are really powerful on a Druid compared to the other classes sometimes. So there are some of these examples, right, where they can like move power from one part of the game to another part, and then it would feel greater overall.
Well, they've got to have like an internal scaler for like how much a spell does each level, right? So I feel like it can't be that hard to just change some of those numbers up at the beginning for druids and for barbarians, because I feel like at the very beginning of the game, that's actually the most important part of the game, because for a lot of people, if that part isn't fun, they don't make it to the late game. It doesn't matter to them like, oh, it gets fun after 15 hours, 30 hours. They're gone after 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly the point that comes out of this, I guess.
So, speaking of the nerfs they've done, they've obviously been nerfing a lot of dungeons. There's been some short dungeons with a large amount of elites and stuff like that. And even the longer dungeons, they've been like nerfing some of the density. Wonder how you guys feel about this, because I would say even like the most dense dungeon has felt a little sparsely populated for me. Obviously, it's very different for me for PoE. So I want to know, like Asmon, how do you guys feel about the dungeon density?
I like it whenever there's a lot of mobs, because I like killing a lot of mobs at the same time. I think it's just like really cool. And like like in PoE where you have like a giant pack of mobs and you proc like Herald of Ice and there's like the pop, it's so good. And like in Diablo, like at the very beginning of the game where there'd be like 10 elites and like one random room and you just like pop all your spells, you use your ult, they're all dead, and there's like 2 legendaries that drop. It feels good. So like obviously they need to balance the stuff, but I would rather that with like these higher nightmare dungeons, because obviously this has been like something they've been struggling with like incentivizing. I wish that they would increase the density and increase and change the mob types inside of the higher tier nightmare dungeons to make them more rewarding fundamentally by like having just a higher elite density, or maybe like a higher chance to spawn butchers or something like that. Something to make them more interesting rather than just doing the same thing, but there's a bigger number for the mob.
Yeah, I think that's a really great suggestion from Asmon. Like actually changing the the way that you play through a dungeon in some way, right? So you already have this kind of distinction between like tier 1 and then tier 10 and tier 21 sigils and stuff. Like you get like more affixes and stuff that in addition to the tier and the level scaling also make the runs a bit different. Maybe adding more density would be also one way to like just like spice it up more, right? So this is definitely a really cool idea. But I think also that, for example, the seasonal content is missing right now. I think, if you, for example, make the seasonal content, it's going to be probably similar to like PoE maps, where you're also going to see that in dungeons, right? Or at least some of it, right? Or there's like a chance for it to appear. I guess it's going to be like a very similar system in the end. So that's also probably why the dungeons feel a bit empty now, and why they're generally nerfing the density to kind of like make space for such a system where there are these seasonal mechanics that just come in sometimes. And then you have the butcher here, you have like the season 1 thing there, and you have a season 2 thing there in the other dungeon or something, right?
It's like, imagine if you could do a nightmare dungeon and it could proc as an affix that every elite is replaced with the butcher.
See, Butcher's so annoying because it's not rewarding, like, at all.
Yeah, it is.
No,
he always drops a legendary. And if you're doing a sigil, he always drops, I think, 2 sigils.
Yeah, he's great. What do you mean? Butcher is perfect.
I would rather
kill him than a random elite. Yeah.
I feel like he's not that rewarding. Like, I mean, to the point where I'm two-shotting him now, and he's not rewarding enough.
I don't know. I'd like to see them add in like more types of monsters like the butcher. Because like, what do y'all think about the events inside of the dungeons? Like the hostage, save me from like the waves, and then like, you know, a random like mob breathes on her and like, and in like tier 4 and she's dead. But like theoretically, because like the way that I feel about the little events is that I skip every single one of them unless I'm just in a weird mood and I feel like doing it. And the reason for that is because you can't really speed it up. Like, it disrupts the flow of the dungeon. Do you guys do the same thing?
So some of the events are pretty good. You kind of have to know which ones they are, because most of them do kind of suck.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the issue is like, so especially the save me thing. It's like, oh, save me. First, you have to find the kneeling guy like under your pile of corpses and loot, and then you click on them. Then you have to click on them again, but you have to wait like 5 seconds in between, and then the event starts. But it doesn't really start until like 30 seconds later. It's starting to drip like 1 mob every 5 seconds, and then 2 mobs after 10 seconds, and like 3 mobs at like the 15 seconds. And then you get the build-up after like a minute where you kind of get swarmed with mobs, but the ramp is too slow, the RP is too slow, everything's just too slow. So yeah, I think they just need to speed up a lot of them.
I also don't think their health scales by going in higher dungeons, because like in higher ones they seem to like they get one shot, especially if you have like the goblin exploders. It's like, save me, they're all gone. I'm like, okay, fuck this, I'm leaving.
Yeah, absolutely true. And what Krip said, it makes absolute sense. I think it would be way cooler if like these events were generally like beefed up but more rare. So, you know, I don't want to see them like every single dungeon. Like, this was actually kind of the opposite of what it was in like the open beta, right? They had like a 10% chance, and then they buffed it to 60% chance. And now you see them like all the time. And then there's also the cursed chest, and then there's also the cursed shrine, and then there's the cursed well. And I had like dungeons where I had like 4 different events because of that. And it's just, you know, it's kind of nice that it can be multiple things, but I think it's like too often. And if they just like made them more rewarding, but like a bit less frequent, you know, because there are these different triggers. And again, as we just talked about, there's probably going to be season mechanics coming in as well. You know, it's nice if like you don't see the same events all the time, right? So it's just has to be more rare and like way juicier. So
yeah, I like the purple chest thing. That's like decent, but like especially my like least favorite thing right now is when I have a slay everything zone and I click on a shrine and it's cursed, because it spawns like 3 monsters. I kill those 3. Here's another 3 monsters. I kill those 3. Here's 4 monsters. I kill those 4. And then like the last 2 waves is like a bunch of elites and a bunch of monsters. But I'm like, I would like, come on. This is like very disruptive to the flow here. It's very unenjoyable.
It doesn't feel good. Like, I feel like after you do your 5 waves, whenever you do one of those, every single wave after that should have 1 elite, and then like 6 has 1 elite, 7 has 2 elites, and just see how far you can go.
Yeah, things like that shouldn't feel like a punishment.
Yeah,
I do have a bit of a differing opinion to the mob density. Okay. So before we kind of lose way track of that, maybe pitch that in there. So the mobs get much dumber when there's more of them. Like, mobs in this game have this thing where they like bump into each other and shit. And okay, so if there's like 1 mob, it's really easy. If it's 2, it's pretty easy. The peak difficulty is at like 5 or 6 coming from different sides of the screen. Because when you get to like 30, you just like kite them. They're not even attacking, like bumping into each other. Especially if you're playing Sork. Like, if you're playing Sork, once you hit like 30 mobs, you literally have infinite damage with a firewall build. Like
Right.
it just they can't move. The damage keeps going up and up and up because one thing's triggering another thing. So I like the idea of maybe slightly higher density than we're experiencing, but I think they're really doing that to like maintain the difficulty given how the mobs behave in this game, I would say. Yeah, the mobs just don't work very well when there's tons of them.
Yeah, I see
I
that.
think that's a good insight. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I could 100% see that. Personally, I don't mind it. I like having the high density with mobs, but if they don't really play well, I think that really what people are asking for with high density is just like more rewarding dungeons and less downtime. I think that it's not necessarily about how many mobs there are, it's more about how many times you're just like running from area to area and there's like two of the little fallen guys running after you. It's like kind of annoying in that way. So I
Yeah.
think that if they added in, like, I think that they need something that's like a higher tier of elite than what we have. Something in between like an elite and the butcher. And just like to have those existing in dungeons and for people to like fight them and want to fight them because they give better rewards.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good thing. That's something Grim Dawn does really well, is the special monsters in that is very, very exciting to find and stuff like that with monster infrequence, which
Yeah.
is like a special drop type. So yeah, for me, it's also like the downtime. I still think I would enjoy higher density because yeah, something like the fireball thing and just everything exploding on screen, that always feels good to me. Like has been said with Herald of Ice. I love seeing
Yeah.
big shatters. That's why I'm loving the rogue so much.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. It's kind of nice to like blow up like large packs. For example, right now I'm playing like a death trap build and it like pulls in like half the screen and then they all just like vanish basically. So it feels really good, but I don't think it needs to happen like, literally every 5 seconds or so. I think it's fine if there's like sometimes these big packs and then sometimes like these smaller packs with like, 1 or 2 elites. But, most of the time, I don't know, maybe it's just my builds, but I go really fast and, none of these fights really are like big fights right now. It's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I just blast it down, move on, right? And then there's like this downtime in between that you try to overcome as quickly as possible by just, using your dash, using your evade to go to the next pack. If there was like more monsters like in between, like not just necessarily bigger packs, but more monsters that just fill up the empty space, then this would probably feel a lot more like, like an action RPG, right? Where we don't need to blow up entire screens. We just need to like not run for like 20 seconds straight without anything. So this would be already a massive improvement.
I think having like slower and more like individual NPC based gameplay is actually kind of a good thing though, and I kind of like that about like especially the beginning of Diablo 4 and like even Diablo 3 had this a bit where you're really going through a dungeon and you're fighting one elite and you're actually beating that specific elite. I kind of don't mind that, like the slower pace to it. But I feel like the problem is that if you don't have that be like uniform across all of the different dungeons, everybody's just going to run the same dungeon over and over and over, and everything's just going to default back to that.
I think that's almost always going to happen. The only thing that will change that is the nightmare sigils and the fact that you can't run the same dungeon. That's why I was still, even with the new nightmare dungeon changes, I was hoping they would address scaling at some point and have, because people will want to level characters to 100. And if that for just XP is still just running dungeons, people will do that. I was hoping dungeon scaling would stop, like the normal ones would stop at like 80 or something.
So you like have to do nightmare dungeons to go like past that?
Now they could just make nightmare dungeons rewarding enough that people will be running that, but yeah. So
I mean, they are rewarding already, and they're gonna buff them significantly. Like, there's no doubt for me that nightmare dungeons is the meta. Like after this patch comes out,
I hope so.
Even right now, like as a solo player, I've tested this. Like last few days or so, like on my builds, I was doing like some of these dungeons that people were suggesting, which is Ruins of Eridu, pre-nerf, and I was doing Blind Burrows and all this kind of stuff. And I timed it a little bit, and I was getting pretty much almost the same XP that I was getting in nightmare dungeons by just running like good sigils that were like over my level basically. So if you can do them quickly and effectively, like the nightmare dungeons are already almost on the same level as this dungeon spam that everyone is doing. Not talking about like group play.
Yeah.
So
that
group
too.
play obviously is
but there's also the rippiness.
Yeah, the rippiness. Okay, yeah, it's definitely rippier, but I mean, this is not a concern for like softcore at the very least, I think.
Sure.
So yeah, it's harder to do nightmare dungeons, that's for sure. but it's also rewarding in terms of the loot. You get more uniques there, and you also get the glyphs. So a lot of people I think underestimate the power of glyphs, and then they're kind of like weak, and they're like looking at my stream, and they're saying, "Oh, you do so much damage. Like, why is my rogue not doing that much damage? I have 10,000 attack power, and you have only 7." Well, it's because I have my glyphs leveled, and everyone else just running normal dungeons. Of course, your character sucks. So
Yeah.
it's just how it is. So the people are really underestimating that power.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing now in my rogue, is I've actually been doing all the nightmare sigils and getting all my glyphs up to, well, soft cap level now. At least I have them all at 15. I'll probably try to get a few to 21 and see how big the difference is. But I really want to discuss a little bit about the nightmare sigil mods, like the blood blister, the there's so many.
I hate that red thing that runs after you. That shit's so annoying.
Oh, the
So
like
many
big
of them are
crystal.
annoying.
Oh my god, yeah, I hate that.
I don't mind the crystal so much, but like I hate the lightning from the sky one. But like that's at least my take on it. Is like so many of them are they're oppressive. They're very oppressive. They're exhausting. Like I wish there were more, like the Nightmare Dungeon portal one. I love the portal. It's like Beyond and Path of Exile, and I really enjoy it.
Like Elder Portals or something.
Yeah, so many of the other ones are just straight up oppressive. Like the what's the red like plasma beams they fire out on death? Death pulse?
Lightning
Avenger.
things.
No,
this one.
Death pulse.
Death pulse.
I hate death pulse. I hate half of them. Like over half of them. I actually don't mind drifting shade. I don't mind the crystal that follows you, but I really hate the lightning from the sky, and like a few of them are just insane.
I really feel this kind of ties into. I kind of want to pitch in on the last topic. I think you guys are. I think the people that like Nightmare Sigils are just like built a little differently, where they're not triggered by the terrible quality of life of running back and forth and figuring out which mods are okay and knowing which ones are good, which ones are not. Finding it on the map, managing in the inventory, doing the math on the levels to know which ones are actually efficient. Like not everyone can just minus 51 the character level, like snappy, right?
Yeah.
And like I think that like magnifies like crazy in a group environment. And I think because group environment is rewarded more than solo play, you're kind of missing that mark a little bit. Like having like 4 people on the same page with all this stuff is such a mess. And yeah, when you throw in the mods as well, you're trying to organize with your groups who hates what mods with their build. Like, oh my god, bro, we are way off the deep end on this one in terms of our sanity.
Like some of them are like just annoying or whatever. I think that it's about like how to make the affixes like more interesting and like fun rather than just making them like annoyances. I know that like World of Warcraft had this problem with Mythic Plus Dungeons, where it's like Mythic Plus Dungeons, every single one of the affixes is just like what is going to annoy you this week rather than what's going to make the fight like more interesting or challenging.
Yeah, I'd rather see more like damage mods, health mods, things like that. More things like the Nightmare Portal. And honestly, I think the Volcano one is pretty good as a dangerous mod. Like, I think that one is like a little bit less oppressive than the rest. But so many of them, I'm like, I just don't want to run this dungeon because I'm not enjoying these mods. I would love to see them like add like a bigger pool of things that can roll. When we were running in a party, there was so many things we didn't want to run because especially if you're doing split farming, right? Because XP is shared dungeon wide. If you have the lightning from the sky one, then like, okay, well, that lightning protection thing is only following one player, so the other 3 are taking full damage every time.
That's
They
great.
should combine the Asmon's idea of butchers and stuff. It doesn't all have to be downsides. It can be area has 5 butchers as one of the mods, and then you can choose if you want to do that one or not. These downside upside things. I love those kinds of decisions in ARPGs where something is not necessarily a downside. Right now, every single one of those mods is a downside, and half of them are really annoying.
Yeah, except for the Nightmare Portal.
It's pretty annoying too. Play a minion build.
The Nightmare Portal, I tested it. They actually give you XP, so I guess you can technically AFK farm them.
I just call it Beyond.
Yeah, okay, it's beyond. Yeah, but the suggestion that Grip made is really good with like having something that is like not necessarily a downside, right? So if there's like more stuff like that, like that could be really cool as well. But I gotta say personally, I don't really mind like almost any of the nightmare affixes. It's only that Death Pulse is like just super rippy. So yeah, like on hardcore you just don't run that. And then there's Resource Burn, which is like
That one's
oof.
insane.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
Burn.
Resource Burn though.
Yeah, it's kind of like an interesting affix, but it's like way too overtuned, I think. So if that was like tuned down, I think that would be more reasonable. But outside of that, like honestly, I almost never pay attention to the affixes. Like it's just kind of like whatever. But it would be cool to see like more variety, right? Like even more affixes. Like you see like you run like 5 dungeons, and then you see the rock, you see the portal, you see the lightning storm, and then you run the next one, you see the lightning storm again, then you see the rock again. So it's like too small of a pool, right? And it was like more variety and like more access to sigils, or even like a way to change a sigil, reroll a sigil, for example, like randomly. Like you get like maybe the right dungeon with the right tier, and you can just go to your cultist and do like a reroll for some powder. Why not? So
yeah.
I'd just like to see like more, I guess like the type of variety I'd want to see, and this is like such a weird example, but if anybody played like PUBG back in the day, like how excited people would get whenever there would be like a fog map or a rain map, because it would change the way that you can play the game and like strategies that you can use in the game. And I feel like that's what really makes things exciting whenever you're talking about like adding in affixes, something that actually like changes gameplay in a way that's like interesting, rather than like, okay, this is just what's going to be annoying this time rather than something else.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I already have like those, like, all elites have cold enchanted, all elites have suppressors. I think these definitely change how you approach a run. So it kind of goes in that direction, but I see like maybe more environmental effects, or something that like is like a global modifier of some sort, right, to the entire run. That could be quite interesting. So maybe they can come up with some creative ideas.
I mean, the
It
system
seems
is
like they
good
are.
for them to be creative. Like
What?
they could have like a wallet system, like just add like 4 mods and you get like exclusive access, like Uber Butcher. That can be one of the mods.
Yeah.
Or, like the system they set up is really open for them to be creative with them. But I don't know. I'm expecting for the first few seasons they're just keeping up with their regular content plan, which is probably pretty light, and polishing every system in the game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much they put in season 1, besides zombies, obviously.
Yeah, I'll be really curious too, because like I think that's really what, like, for me, the reason why I stepped away from Diablo 3 is that I felt like every season kind of felt the same. Like it didn't really feel like I was making a lot of progression or doing anything that was like very, very much meaningful.
Yeah.
So like I kind of just moved away and lost interest in the game. But if they were able to make the seasons like more dynamic and different, like kind of like how PoE seasons are, because like in Path of Exile, like you immediately start interfacing with like the new seasonal mechanic whenever you are on the beach, like at the very, very beginning. And that's what I think that Diablo needs to have, is like things that are like really defining and changing for pretty much everybody that's playing.
Yeah,
that's the plan. Actually, they said that they will do that. So it's like within the first hour at least, or something. You should already experience the season mechanics. So I think that's what they said.
It'll also be interesting to see how many balance changes they'll do in terms of like shaking up the meta. So if you are generally playing the same skill every league, you're probably gonna be a little bit burnt out faster as well.
Well, I gotta say that balancing is. I mean, we talked about balancing earlier, right? So I think generally it's moving towards like a really good spot where you don't have like this insane outliers. Maybe on the very high end with like the Exodia combo, right? Certain builds like really pop off. But on the way there, those 100 hours of grind, you can definitely play and be successful with a lot of different things, right? And what we talked about earlier, like it needs to be balanced within a class more than across classes. I think that's definitely more important. For example, on the rogue right now, I've been experimenting with like all kinds of builds. I think like rogue is probably like the most balanced class right now. Like basically any core skill feels good. Everything, like you can combine so many different tools with the imbues, with the smoke grenade, with the ultimates. The only thing that is like really out of whack is the rain of arrows on rogue, which is just awful. But everything else kind of like has a reason to exist on rogue. All the key passes, everything. So this is great. So rogue is like the prime example of like how balance should be almost. And if they get other classes kind of to that spot, that will be great.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
And yeah, and I wouldn't even feel like too obligated to like play this or that skill as like a season starter, for example. Just to like race. Like okay, maybe this one thing could be like an hour or two faster, but it may have less survivability. So for like a hardcore race, I might rip on the way or something, right? So, but overall, I think they're in a good spot and they're just getting better with the balance, I guess.
They do have some challenges though with like mechanics. Like I don't care how much they're gonna buff channel skills. If you have to stand still to channel the skill, no one's gonna use that skill. Like it's just that simple. Like if
You can always do
like,
what they did in
right,
WoW. It's like allow you to have a legendary where you can move while channeling.
yeah,
That's
but I don't
very
like the
popular.
idea of making a skill not suck just to get a -1 gear slot. I don't like that either.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Like Incinerate on Sork is so hideous. It's hard to describe. Like the glyph that buffs core skills increases the crit multiplier. It doesn't crit. You have to stand still. The way that channel skills work is it charges you the cost up front and then also over the time. So if you channel it for 1 second, it actually costs double. And it's the lowest damage core skill on Sork. Like I don't know, but like if I'm like asked to use it, if they make it the highest damage core skill, I still wouldn't use it. If they make it twice the highest damage core skill, I still wouldn't use it. So it's just like a mechanically crippled skill, and I think that's the case for all the channeled skills. So they have these things that just it really needs a bit of an overhaul.
There's no other. Oh no, there's one other channel skill, right? There's Lightning Storm Druid. Necromancer has the decompose, I guess, but not a core skill, right?
No, not a core skill.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter much on Necro, but it does matter on Druid, I guess. But Druid are BP boys, they don't die, so it's fine. They can just stand there.
I think
But
people are enjoying that.
I think there are definitely people that just likes to stand there and like if they're fire
There's
beam.
like the power fantasy of that, of just being able to just endure everything attacking you and it just doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I can totally see that no one here would enjoy that, but there are people that do that, I think. And it would be maybe cool if they would open up some options like for Incinerate in particular, I guess, maybe as like a dual core skill setup where, you have like a fireball and then whenever you can, you follow up with an Incinerate. So it's not just standing still, but, whenever you have the opportunity, right? So that could be maybe like at least an option to explore, I guess.
yeah. I think I want to move on to another topic of crafting and items. Because at least for me personally, I was very surprised how enjoyable the item chase is for being on a simpler end of a system. So, Krip, do you want to talk a little bit about items and your experience with them so far?
Again, this is mostly from like Sork playstyle. Items are fantastic on Sork. The 4 stat item per item is exquisitely limiting. If you want to be tanky, you're always losing damage, and vice versa. So it's always a choice of what kind of gear you're pursuing for your character. If they had 5 stats, this would kind of go away. If they had 6 stats, you have Diablo 3, where everyone's looking for literally the same items. So I think the 4 stat item, the fact that you have quite a lot of agency over the items, like rerolling 1 stats and converting rares to legendaries, actually works out pretty well. By the time you finish leveling your character to 100, I think your gear is like 90% of the way there. And I think that's a good place to be in terms of like gearing out a character.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that is super lame is like they pitched us on some of the coolest unique items, and I'm not convinced they exist. Or it's something like doing a flawless save the guys that are being beheaded on a Nightmare Dungeon 100 solo, and then Shaco has a chance to drop.
There's a 10% chance.
Yeah. Unless it's some crap like that, I don't know. I don't know.
This is why I have not seen the grandfather.
Yeah, probably.
Nobody has seen that sword. Like we've seen one Korean Shaco, and apparently I saw there was one I think it was called like Doombringer or something like that. I don't remember what the name of the sword was. And there was one of those, but other than that, all of these other items, like nobody has even seen them at all. Which is like, I mean, you can compare that. I think it's too low. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm being a casual here, but I think like not Like this is gonna, because you think about it, right? This is gonna be the most that people are ever going to play Diablo 4, pretty much ever, right? Because at the beginning of the game. So
Yep.
if people aren't seeing these items now, like they're not going to exist.
Yeah, because it's like incomparable rarity to anything we've seen before, right? It's incomparable to Tyrael's Might, Mage's Blood, or Headhunter in Path of Exile, or Mirror, because the sheer amount of people that are playing right now is just insane.
Well,
You
it's
guys just
also
aren't
like,
lucky enough. Like, can you?
yeah, of course. Just get good.
Maybe
Yeah.
they drop in the cow level.
You know what I think they're going to do? I think we're going to get a tier 5. How do you guys feel about a Torment 5 or whatever they call it? A world tier 5?
Yeah, so that has been data mined. People are saying that
Yeah.
there is one, and I'm guessing that's coming with season 1, I would assume.
I disagree. I disagree.
Okay.
I have a take on this.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly how D4 works, but when I talked about how Diablo 2 works, people who data mine Diablo 4 told me that it works in a similar way. So it's like a category of files, and a lot of the files that have to do with just items and stats on a spell, it's kind of like an Excel sheet. So it's really easy to data mine. That's why everyone's data mining, because it's really easy. So if you're going to code a game where you might later have higher gem tiers, yeah, you're just going to leave some extra cells in the X spreadsheet. Obviously, you're going to do that. And I think some of these data mine guys are getting way ahead of themselves. So I think they got some timbits of, it's like, this is where we're going to put the Torment 5, Torment 10, Torment 20 data when we decide to do it. And then the data mine guys are just like, oh my God, it's happening tomorrow. It's like, no.
So you think they're just future proofing, whereas like the data mining is implying that it's happening
Exactly,
in season 1.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Couldn't they put more than just one though? Then?
The gems, there's more than one gem, but as far as I know, there's not more
tons
than
of gem
one
tiers.
world tier level.
Yeah, exactly. So I also agree with what Krip said. I think this is mostly like maybe something in the future, maybe in the expansion. Like we don't know like what expansions will do. Will they raise the level cap? Will we just like have the same kind of like progression, or will it like squish the levels? And like anything can happen, right? We don't have no information about anything of that. And this might be the moment where they introduce like yet another like torment, but they like like reduce the time it takes to get to Torment 5. Just make it faster. So it could just be something like that, right? Where they have like maybe an extra progression system. Let's say like subclasses or something like ascendancies, whatever. Something like that might happen. So there's just like room for that, and I think right now there's nothing like that happening, and there's also no need, honestly. I would like them to beef up the open world content in general, maybe at some point, like especially at level 100. There's like no reason to do anything in open world content really, and there's basically only nightmare dungeons, which you've already grinded for like 50 hours straight just to even get to 100. So in general, I think the open world content is just lacking a bit. But again, this might be like a solution for season content anyway. So maybe you want to go out there and want to find those season monsters or whatever, right? So we don't know how it's gonna be, but we're gonna learn soon. But yeah, in general, I don't really trust any of this data mining right now. Like, and the same with those uniques. Those some uniques are data mined that we have never seen, literally. Like,
well, they said Blizzard came out and said that they're in the game.
For Shaco, they did, yeah.
Yeah, for Shaco they did, yeah, but for none of the others, really. I think they mentioned Grandfather in like one of the dev streams, actually. So
I think they did as well, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, they're definitely way too rare. I mean, they released those stats lately with like 300 million hours played or something, and there's like one Shaco that we know of.
Okay, but the only thing that makes sense then, if Shaco, let's argue in the belief that Shaco is in the game. The only thing that makes sense then is that it's Nightmare Dungeon 100 plus at least, and that it's really rare then, because there's even on software not that crazy amount of people doing that amount, right? So if it's like mirror tier rarity or mage blood tier rarity, like there's Path of Exile players that have played 20,000 hours of Path of Exile without finding a mirror. People are saying that people got a Shaco, but I don't know.
Yeah, but it's like
I've seen so many people claim they have a drop, even in my own chat, and like people who watch my chat are like 30. I'm sure you go to different communities, everyone's found every single item. They're dual wielding grandfathers on Barbarian and all the I'm sure that's the case. I'm sure just all the streamers are very unlucky. That's what's happening.
Yeah. Streamers are stupid. They don't know what they're talking about.
They don't know anything, man.
Like, haven't you heard? Maybe it's a really high Nightmare Dungeon thing. That's the only thing that makes sense.
maybe they manipulated the streamer client to be worse RNG than usual instead of better RNG. So have you thought about that?
Make the viewers feel better. Yeah, it's good.
That'd probably work really well.
I want to see those items be easier to get. Like not easier, but like, you know, in Path of Exile, if you see like a headhunter, you can work towards a headhunter incrementally. And in like Diablo, in original Diablo 3, you could work towards the gear incrementally as well because you could get enough gold to buy it. But like in Diablo
Runeworks,
like yeah, it was like how do you work towards an item? Like everything is just like a random drop. And I think that there needs to be a way to work towards those super rare drops, or at least have targeted farming for them, if you want to just have them in the game. Because other than that, it just feels weird to me, at least.
So that would all change for you if we found out later today that it does in fact 100% drop from Nightmare tier at level 100, right? That would change, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, because there it is. There's your goal.
Yes, I agree. So I think that the lack of target farming is massive in D4, and you're gonna notice it more and more as seasons come in, as more uniques come in, as more legendaries come in. Right? I hear from people that, you know, they played a druid to level 80 and they have not gotten a single pulverized shockwave aspect. You know, like imagine that you're trying to play a werebear druid, and you don't get your main aspect. You know. Like, you know, this kind of lack of target farming is you know, excruciating, I think, and we definitely need like a solution like that goes somewhere in the direction of divination cards, I guess. I really hate divination cards, but divination cards solve a problem at least. You know, like we need something where you can go somewhere and have like a better odd of getting the item you want, or getting the aspect you want, getting the unique somewhere. You know, maybe like some kind of like, you know, I don't know, some kind of system, right? It doesn't have to be divination cards directly.
So they have a little bit of a system, and I like it, but yeah, they obviously need a lot more. Like, so Necromancer, not a lot of people are going to understand how the system can be gamed, but an item can only roll like within certain items. So if you want a certain power that's utility, one of the best places to get it is on boots, because there's almost no movement aspects. Like Necromancer has 2 movement aspects. So if you want utility, the best thing to do is to use like your obols for boots. So like the way I leveled the Necro is I just did every single world event I ran across, I just did it. And then I only gambled boots. And then when I did my capstone to go to world tier 3, I just spammed Helltide, which also you do the events in Helltide, and I got a crazy amount of obols. I basically was like level 50 with like 10 plus 2 skeleton warriors, like 3 blizzards, and like 5 skeleton mages sitting in my stash. So like I had like 5 characters worth of of legendary powers. So you can really game it, but you do need like that character knowledge, and you have to warp your play style to acquire it if it's going to make your character, like in the case of that druid.
Barbarian has that too.
Yeah, I really like the limited target farming that is in Diablo 2. Like, even if it's just things like, you know, Stone of Jordan has a higher chance to draw from Nightmare and Darl, so you can spam Nightmare and Darl, you have a bigger chance to get Stone of Jordan. And I think they have a really good opportunity here with the fact that they have so many dungeons, right? You could have like these 5 aspects have a slightly higher chance to draw from this. So like Druid Pulverized, etc. If you're a Druid, you really need Pulverized, you farm this dungeon. If you really need the Barbarian unique helmet or a Druid unique helmet, you farm this dungeon, right? It's got a slightly higher chance. You're not guaranteed to get it, but yeah. I think stuff like that would help the game a lot. I think target farming is a huge part of ARPGs. And another thing that is very crazy to me in Diablo is the fact that the item level or requirement of items scales with your character, which they finally addressed today. I'm very happy about that.
What are they doing about that? I didn't get a chance to see that.
They're not doing anything, I think.
No, they only address the fact that, by the way, item power is what makes characters, what makes item scale, not the item level. Because apparently a lot of people have been looking at, oh, required level is higher, this item must be better. But at least that means they're looking at it, right? Surely that means they're gonna. Surely that means they're gonna.
And
do
you got to
something.
share some of that copium with the rest of us.
Surely.
Yeah, of course.
I have a point about this actually. So yeah, so personally, I actually really like that system. because it makes items that are really good that you find early in the progression very valuable, especially for trading. I think like once trading really like comes in, and once people actually like understand what items are good and bad, and we don't just get spam flooded with like like trash loot in the trade channels. At some point, if you find like a level 60 like item power 800, two-handed weapon that has like core skill damage, vulnerable damage, crit damage, then you're gonna sell this for a fortune, basically, right? So I think this is like one really cool thing. And it's also another is that it kind of gives you like a nice progression curve for all of your alts as well. So you don't like just like target like pre-farm, the entire gear set for your second character or something, but you have this same adventure that you do with your main character by like going through the entire game and finding your own loot as you go. And you have like this kind of like like you always have like this next step basically. So I think this is what they're trying to achieve here, and personally, I actually enjoy it.
You should never be punished for leveling up.
Yeah,
Well,
okay. I mean,
so-
I can see that it feels weird, and I agree that you can find the same item with like level requirement 100 or with 60, right? But on the other hand, I don't know. It's kind of like like for what it does, like the effect it has on the game is actually good in my opinion. So this is why.
I'd rather see the other way around, that you actually do get a slightly larger power the higher level you are. So you still have like you fix the floating problem you're talking about. But the fact that if I'm playing on a level 100 character and find an item, there is like 13 other people in hardcore, basically, that might be playing the same class as me and are level 100 and actually don't have full best in slot yet. Like that feels really bad. I don't want to be punished for leveling up. And you can never find things for your alts at all.
I mean, maybe they could cap it. Maybe they could cap the maximum level requirement at 80 or something.
Yeah.
How would you feel about that?
I would say 70, but yeah.
I think having the cap, it makes sense, because like having an item drop and it's like required level 94. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if it can go up that high.
It
Like
does.
what is this? Why?
Goes to 100.
Yeah,
Just 100.
Even
why,
shop
why
items.
is this?
You can't buy a shop item from your higher level characters.
That's just weird.
Yeah, it should be entirely dependent on the item power. It's
Well,
it's crazy to me.
Well, I mean, I think it would be bad if like at least in late game, if you like like you're like level 70, you just entered Torment or level 80, and then you find an item that's like really god roll, and then you have to wait like 5 levels because it has like such a high level requirement if it like roll the level requirement above your character. So the fact that it's like maximum or basically equal to your character level is fine, but yeah, maybe they should just like stop it somewhere, right? So level 80, and then that okay, at level 80 you've already done like such a big part of the progression, and now it's just kind of like a sailing to the finish line. So just pick up all your best in slot loot from your stash and from trade, and there you go, right? So why not?
As long as it's a limited amount of levels, I don't really mind that. Like if I've just started doing ancestral torment stuff, like let's say I maybe did it a little bit earlier, I get something that's level 70 and I see this is a huge upgrade for me in like 3 levels and 5 levels, I don't really mind that much. That makes me look forward to that level so much.
Because like there's something that's coming. Yeah. I would be okay with that as well. I think it just depends on like how much you have to wait and how long it has to be. It's like a matter of like degree, I think, in most things.
Yeah, like
I
obviously.
still would like to see a few things. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go on. I didn't have anything interesting to say.
Oh, I'm backtracking on topics because sometimes you guys shift and
No, it's all good.
Finish. So yeah, for codexes, like they have so many dungeons, they could just add like the like all the legendary powers to the codex, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think one thing they should do is they should play around with the percentages a little bit. I think the free ones from the codex should be worse on the scale. Like I think the scale should be expanded, so the bottom end is worse, but then they should be more accessible, so you can actually play those characters if you want. But on the other hand, they have this like weird, like perfect roll thing happen. Like I've found 3 perfect Shadow Blight things. And the roll is 60 to 120, and I've only found like 10 of them. There's no chance that that's random. Like I think it kind of cheapens it for me. I want them to actually be random, because that's how it was in D2. Getting like a perfect unique, even if it wasn't that good of a unique, felt really good, and it kind of made me pick up all of them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's I mean, it is random. I think what you experience is that there's not that many steps that can roll, right? It's 60 to 120. But it's like 60, 70, 80, 90 or something like that. So this is probably how it works, no?
No. I have like 106, 109. The cap is 120. So.
Oh wait,
don't
I thought
think
you were
so.
complaining that you found like perfect ones all the time. Like what? Then I
Yeah,
misunderstood
I
them.
found 3 perfect ones out of the 10.
Ah,
Like, okay, there's another
okay.
one. You know, Razor Plate. The Razor Plate has a range of thorns at high level of like 4,000.
Yeah.
I've found 2 that are the worst roll. There's no chance.
I don't think that it's actually a range. I think that there are certain benchmarks that it can hit.
Yeah,
There's
I
like
think-
5 or 6 benchmarks.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
see.
That's what I said. Yeah, there's like a
I've
few
had
stats.
so many perfect rolls. There's no chance.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like maybe there's like 20 different intervals on
Mhm.
like an item or something, right? So that it can
Yeah.
hit, and you got lucky and hit like the max roll a few times.
Right.
Yeah. I still would like it to be like all the way random.
Yeah.
I guess it's like a very minor thing. I don't really have an opinion on that, I guess.
I think that would be nice too. And I really like what you said. I think especially every core skill aspect should be an aspect. And yeah, they could be even lower to just make it playable, and it does get exciting to drop a good one. And like if there was gonna be drop only ones, that could be like the ultimate things or some of the defensive ones, like something that isn't like build enabling and mandatory.
Yeah, but
I
I mean,
also
how would
just
you?
got a 92 Shadow Blight, so it's not even a factor of 3. This one might actually be random. I don't know.
Yeah.
The theory is falling apart, guys. It's falling apart at the seams.
That was this Blizzard going like, "Oh, you're talking shit."
This is made one just for you right now.
Yeah.
No, but one point I have about the codex powers is, I mean, how would you go about changing the codex now? Like, I mean, they clearly cannot make a dungeon for every single codex power, for every single legendary power, and every dungeon has a codex power now. So should they just remove certain codex powers and then add other ones in, or
Double
like
up.
They could
just
even
get,
have
you get 2 for one dungeon or what?
but no, but
Yeah,
some codex powers can be default
Why not have them drop from the different act bosses?
or that.
Like that would be fine. I mean, yeah.
Okay, I mean,
Or-
it could definitely be like more unlockable, like more things you can do to unlock codex powers, right? So maybe it's just like you do like maybe even like a side event, right? You could do like a local event in this area and a local event there, and maybe that also unlocks one. So this could also be like a bit themed around, certain powers, I guess.
Kill the butcher
I
5
think it's
times.
an easy fix. Like you can even do cute stuff like if you do a dungeon, you get its codex power and a random other one or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And then or you can make that work, I think.
Yeah, strongholds as well. There's a lot of things they can put things behind.
So what do y'all think about the having to refarm renown in seasons? Because they just made an announcement. They said we're not going to have to reopen the map.
Yeah.
But I feel like they haven't been very defined on it. I'll give my opinion. I don't want to ever have to do those side quests again. I never want to have to do them again. It was nice the first time. I actually enjoyed it, and it was really great the first time. But then, what about after that?
If they swap the Paragon points and the Obols, and with the fact that they said you were getting the renown from the Lilith statues we've done before, right? I didn't mishear that.
Yes.
Yeah. So we actually are starting a lot higher than we were before. We get the full exploration and we get the Lilith statues. If you then swap number 4 and 5 around, so that I at least get the Paragon points at 4, then I'm okay with it.
That's a good point. I would be okay with it at that point, but I would still prefer to not have to do them.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that what is your plan for starting out a season if you don't want to do renown? You just want to go straight to the best dungeon and just grind it, or what?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. Play a new character, build that character, get the gear for the character. It's renown isn't really there's never going to be a point where I level a new character and part of that enjoyment for the season is going to be doing the same side quests. And because a lot of you guys, how many of you guys read the side quests?
I read the by 3 they come one.
Dialect skip button.
I did. I read that one too.
I read by 3 they
Yeah.
come. I think that was really good. I was very excited for that one, but other than that, I didn't care at all.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of the renown system. I really like that it actually incentivizes you to go around the world, you do the stronghold there, get the waypoints. That's what I've done with all my characters now. So I've done this 3 times in a row basically now. And I had a good time with that. I like going around and just grinding my way through the zone at least once. I didn't do full renown on all of the characters, but I did a full renown on my first, and then kind of it should be an option at least to do the renown on the alts, and it's something that is not like useless, because the renown on the alts gives you like literally nothing. It gives like 10,000 gold and like half a bar of XP, or something like that. And that is like pre-level 50, where you have 10 bars.
I think having it give like huge bonuses to
Yeah.
experience would be cool.
Yeah,
But like,
exactly.
I think I have a solution. Okay,
What is it?
since Wudijo is the only one who wants to do it, what if everyone who plays during the season just gets progress for free when Wudijo gets the completion for a quest?
Great, I'll get it on probably the first day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would that
sounds
work?
yeah.
I think that would work.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have it by hour 6. Yeah, no problem.
Excellent.
So, I mean, I'm already like strategizing around the renowned speedrun basically. So
Speedrunning the side quests.
yeah, I mean, I agree with the side quests. I don't want to do side quests, but what if, for example, they add the season content as potential renown sources? So you do like your strongholds and you do like your dungeons. Like, you're gonna unlock your codex powers anyway, and just kind of go around, do all the dungeons, and you have like a good head start from the altars and the exploration. It won't even be such a grind, I think, because of this head start that you have from all that. And then let's say that they add like the season stuff as renown as well, so you can like do like a season event there and a season event here or something.
I think there's just so many things they could add a small amount of renown to as well that would make it a lot less of a chore. Like, for example, you already completing a dungeon gives renown, but what if repeated dungeons gave 2 or 5 renown, and then you have like world events do a few, like between 1 and 5, Helltide stuff give a little bit. Like, there's a lot of things they can give a little bit of renown with that makes it still enjoyable for, like, majority of players are playing these types of games to just grind. And I don't know, I haven't heard that many people that are, I love the side quests, I want to do more of that, right? There's not.
I think that's a really good insight, that like people are really not complaining about renown, they're complaining about having to redo side quests.
Yeah. Exactly. But let's say there's like 2 or 3 more sources and you can completely skip side quests, right? I also don't want to do side quests again, to be honest. Like, I try to stay away from them as much as possible, but just this variety of going around, doing a dungeon here, doing an event there, I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a side quest defender. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I think any individual side quest, once you've reached where it is and you have it tracked, it's fine. I think the problem with side quests is every time you're doing a side quest, you're dealing with a crappy map system, the crappy navigation system, the horse bumping into crap, the fact that you can't have more than 20 of them. It's really hard to track. Even if you have a lot of quests in an area, the difference between a tracked quest and just a quest is, it's like a 1 hue difference in the blue. Like, it's blue versus slightly bluer. You can't even tell which quest you're tracking. Right now. You can't properly skip the dialect. Like, I think the actual side quests themselves are fine. It's just every time you're doing them, you're dealing with the worst parts of the game.
Yeah.
Which brings us to UI, I guess.
That was the number one thing I was really upset about today, is that they didn't even touch on the fact that there's no map overlay. I was like, talk about it.
I will be the contrarian this time. I actually don't mind the fact that there's no map overlay. And I think that in general, like whenever I play PoE, I always have it up. And I do think that contributes to kind of a more weird experience playing and just having this map up over the screen the whole time. So I actually understand where they're coming from.
But just don't have it up then.
Say what?
Just don't have it up.
Well, why would you? Well, the thing is, like, if you have an advantage that's so important that gives you, like, because obviously the reason why I have it up is because it's useful, right? And so if it's so useful that everybody is going to have it up all the time, which is what I think they would do. I could be wrong, but that's definitely what I would do, is have it up all the time. And in doing so, you end up not really seeing what's going on in the game. Like, do you see that as being a good thing? Because I don't really think so.
But instead, I'm spamming M. If you like, so many streamers, it's like M. And
I completely agree with you. I think they should allow you to zoom out the minimap more.
I'm so worried that the solution would be like, we understood that a lot of players were opening the map repeatedly. The map now has an opening animation where a character kneels, opens up a map.
Oh, that's good. New World has that.
Oh my god, that's what I'm worried will happen.
Yeah.
So when you bring up the journal for quests to see, like, we're going back to this, it puts the map overlay over. So to look up a quest, you can't see your character. Now, the flip side of this is playing couch co-op on hardcore is awesome, because anytime you don't like the player you're playing with, if you're tankier than they are, you just bring up that full screen map in a dangerous moment. And there's like next levels of couch co-op that have yet to be explored.
It is what it is.
There's multiple forms of PvP. I didn't even know about that.
That's great. Yeah.
That's great.
But I mean, I agree with Asmon here. Like personally, I'm a huge like map overlay enjoyer. Actually, like in PoE, I don't look at the screen. I look at the map.
Fun.
But in Diablo 4, I don't miss the overlay map very much. I gotta say, like, you have like this, the right click, the pin on the map. You can use that, and I actually started using that, and it works. It works fine. And in dungeons, if you know the dungeon layouts, I feel like it's really unnecessary. Like if you run the dungeon a few times, you know the layout, they're kind of similar, and you know that okay, there's a side room here and a side room there, and you kind of go through them and you know your way around. So
the pin is so bad. It's the GPS equivalent of sending you to the ocean. It's like I click and it's like, okay, here it stops, and it just like goes through the mountain, and I'm like, bro, like I want my overlay map.
I don't understand how that, like, have y'all played Lost Ark before?
No.
Yeah.
In Lost Ark, so like if you click, like let's say there's a road with like a bend in it, and if you click on the other side of the road, the horse will walk around the bend. If you click on the other side of the road in Diablo 4, the horse will just walk into the wall. Why is that? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense.
Horses are just not as smart in Diablo. It's pretty obvious.
It's true, yeah. In Lost Ark, we do have unicorns, so it makes sense.
I've said it on my stream a few times now, but the mount that I want in this game is like a freight train. I want to just stampede over the mobs. I want their scrawny barriers to be like completely obliterated when I walk through them. I want NPCs to be trampled and recover like a minute later. Like this is the mount that I want in Diablo 4. I don't want like the donkey's first time riding,
And I did find it a little bit sad, just from an RP point of view. I found it a little bit sad that like all the like dismount abilities are like the coolest thing ever. The only one that's useful is Sork. Like the rogue pops off, fires like a volley of 1 damage arrows. The druid jumps off, goes like Giga Slam for like 17 damage. And I'm like, bro, why can't these just like, it's not like I'm gonna spam them. They have like a crazy long cooldown. I'm not gonna get back on my mount to go farm monsters. Like please, like let them like at least one hit like the normal trash monsters.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they don't seem to like scale with anything, right? At least they could scale with your overall character power, like anything else does, and you can actually do something with it, right? Yeah. Especially the rogue, man. The rogue is a sad story, man.
Yeah. It looks so cool. But I was like, whoa, when I did that. And then I was like, oh, I'm gonna go one shot a pack with this. And it's like 1 1 1 1 1. I was like, oh. The Sork one's insane though.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of that stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
maybe they could actually like allow customization, like actually slot in like a different ability, and it would actually become a bit of like a part of the combat, like the open world exploration, right? If you focus more on open world content eventually with like seasonal stuff or whatever, they could also like beef up those dismount abilities, or maybe even some other benefits that they can
mounted
get from
attacks.
Yeah, and not that maybe like this would be like too much, but at least like having like like a you have like no abilities, right? You only have like this dismount, and you have this dismount attack and the boost, right? And there's like 3 extra slots that you can fill with some stuff, right? Where maybe a bit like the dragon riding in WoW, like there could be more abilities that actually do something, and like just spice it up basically, and maybe like another attack you can do or whatever.
Well, I mean, hopefully, what happened in WoW is they added extra abilities to dragon riding like throughout the expansion, and they still are. So like hopefully they do the same thing. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think it would be definitely the way to go to make them more interesting and like more included in the overall combat, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, like right now, I go on the mount, I press speed, and then I ride like 2 screens, and there's like a huge pack. I dismount, I do my thing, then I dash, evade, and then I mount up again into the next pack, and it's kind of like a nice fast back and forth. But the fact that I just like go up on the mount and down on the mount without anything else, it's a bit sad. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't actually noticed the roleplay horse walk until day 2, where people pointed out like the further away from your character you
Yeah.
hold the cursor, the faster you run. I hadn't noticed that, so I was like, "Why is everyone faster than me?" So yeah, that's
Apparently, you can't
crazy.
even do that on a controller. By the way, I've heard that controller people they cannot run faster more with
Oh
the mount.
wow, that's even worse. I thought
Well,
it
we
was
got to
floor
get them somewhere,
console.
you know. Those controller Andys are taking over at least
Yeah.
the world of Necromancer.
especially with
Ruining
their
our game.
advanced search features.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I really want to go back to items actually. How do you guys feel
Okay.
about vulnerability? I feel like on every item, all I'm looking for is vuln because it's like in its own bucket and it's crazy strong.
You can't have multiplicative affixes in the same pool as additive ones. Everybody is going to go with the multiplicative one, and
Yeah.
it's just common sense. Like I understand that like you want to have like good and bad affixes, but I'm gonna be real. I think that most of the abilities like close damage, far damage, core damage, like these are all just like percentage increases. I don't feel like any of the stats that you get, except for maybe vulnerability damage, are interesting at all.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's so much more damage.
Yeah, I agree. Like vulnerable. I mean, vulnerable is just like too OP in general, right? You have the glyph for it. You have
Yeah.
like especially
auto
on Barb
proc.
and Rogue, you have
Yeah.
like vulnerable on like all the weapons. I think if the glyph, it's like the glyph, the exploit glyph, if that wasn't like vulnerable damage, but actually like additive damage, like other glyphs, then you could theoretically think about not running vulnerable on like something like a Sorg or a Necro or so, where you don't stack many weapons with vulnerable damage, for example. But for example, on Barb and Rogue, it could be like more of like a integrated class mechanic, so to say, right? Where you have so many sources of it. And it could be like kind of like a thing like Fortify and like all these other kind of class mechanics, barriers that some classes kind of lean more into it than others. But right now, every single build that is good has to have vulnerable. And this is like, too mandatory and too powerful. And when it's down, it feels awful, right? So you always have to search for a way to have perma vulnerable in your build. If your build doesn't have perma vulnerable, it sucks. So that's basically how it works, right? So it's like too much of a black and white, basically. And yeah, just in general, I think the values at the very least need to be massively lowered. I think it's fine that they're on the same items or the same stat pools, basically. If the values were much lower of vulnerable damage, if this wasn't like 60% vulnerable damage, when I can, then if it was like 15, I would say, yeah, okay, that's probably like a kind of like a trade, you can make, right? But yeah.
It also, for Rogue, makes bow completely useless, right? Like, I didn't actually realize how big the difference would be on Vuln. So the fact that like bows have, I think it's distant damage, and then crossbows have vuln damage, it's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, bows are just awful. Like, people ask me like 10,000 times every single day, like, yeah, why do you use a crossbow? And I just say, yeah, okay, you have like one item that gives you the best stats in the game, and then you have another item that does literally nothing when almost everyone plays a melee rogue.
Yeah.
So of course you're gonna choose a crossbow, and even the bow builds use a crossbow, because distant damage is just terrible. So yeah, it's just like this vulnerable needs to be retuned for sure.
It makes the unique bows really bad too.
It was a little bit closer before they nerfed the crap out of the Vuln glyph, though, because characters that didn't have much generic damage and actually had a lot of Vuln damage, it started to swing a little bit the other way. But yeah, it feels like Vuln was something that wasn't considered when they made a lot of changes with itemization and gear over time. And more recently, we can see that being really evident with the glyph change. Like, the glyph change was pretty big. I just don't really like vulnerable, and the more impactful vulnerable is, I think the more annoying combat is, because I mean there's characters with like 300 vuln multipliers, and you're literally doing like no damage or damage. So when it's a conditional effect that you have to apply, it's just combat is always going to be put your curses up, then you can do damage. Next pack, put your curses up, then you can do damage. It's just this tedious form of slowing down combat that I just really don't like. I think it's okay if like one thing is just way better than others on gear. It's pretty hard to avoid that, honestly, it seems, for most games. But not this one. This one's just not a good mechanic to be the one that is leveraged, in my opinion.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like if like vulnerable in the early game, you have like 20%, 30%, like you apply it, it feels good, you notice you do more damage, but it's not like you need to have it, right? But late game, you need to have it or else you don't have a build. So it's just like, yeah, like if the numbers were like way lower and maybe you can scale it to something like maximum double damage, let's say, I think that would be okay. It's like massively lower basically from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have like a cap on it or something like that for sure.
Yeah, I hope they just like end up cripping them. And also with like crafting. Like do you guys like the current crafting in D4 with just rerolling one stat, or
Is that really crafting?
no, but it's what we have, right?
I would like to see a little bit more
bad, though.
crafting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's not.
elementary.
I don't dislike it. It's okay.
Yeah,
I'd just like to
not
see
bad.
more.
I'm surprised with how good a gold sync it is. Like,
Yeah, it
no,
is.
obviously, like something I've seen the last like 10 days is loads of people from other games being like, "Oh, I wish this was more like this game. I wish this was more like that game." And I love when games are different, but there is one mechanic that I love that I think every game should have, and that's Path of Exile's Vol Orb, which has been introduced to like Diablo 2 mods as well, like Path of Diablo, etc. I'm such a huge fan. For those that don't know what it is, it's basically like high risk crafting. It's like a final step where you have a chance to either make the item better or break it entirely. I love that. I really wish there was something like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, corruptions would be amazing to have, but maybe this will come over time. I think that right now we have this rerolling of a stat, and maybe eventually we actually get something like you pick up a white or blue base and you do something with it. Maybe they're going to introduce rune birds. Maybe they're going to introduce corruptions.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely room for that. Like long term to like start adding some stuff. Like yeah, I think that for now it's kind of fine, but I would definitely really like to like grind up for like 100 hours and then at the very least for like one or two of my items, I can use all those materials I have gathered, like the 9,999 raw hide or whatever, and actually do something with it and craft an item, exactly how I want it from scratch. That would be nice. Even if it's like a very rare thing, at least I can like it's something like we talked about with like the working towards a goal, right? Like it doesn't have to be only uniques working towards. It can also be like the best in slot weapon or like a nice armor piece or something, right? And if I can actually use my stuff and kind of like deterministically get there, that would be great. But it just should be like the main way of acquiring loot. I think they still, and the devs also want to keep it that way, right? You want to find loot.
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
It's nice when drops are exciting. My suggestion was having like a pretty rare drop where like the stat that you're actively crafting is like highlighted blue, right? And you can't change that. But having a item that would let you change that's pretty rare. That would be pretty cool. So it's like, okay, you've crafted that part of the item, you now unlock the stat. And as long as that's like pretty rare, then you can at least craft one or two. But it doesn't reset the gold sink, then you have an extreme gold sink as well. So actually crafting an item to perfection would be very hard, but maybe crafting two stats is pretty doable.
I think their system that they've set up for the game is very open-ended. It's very easy for them to add this onto the game, and I'm kind of hoping they will with the seasonal content. I haven't really made up my mind on what I think they'll do with seasonal content, because they could go like big on seasonal content, or they could just start really small and work on like polishing other parts of the game. I think, and I'm hoping that they'll go pretty big in the first one to kind of set the bar of what each season might be later. So I'm expecting the chaos to be interesting.
Yeah, I really hope they just go as big as they can. Like, just do crazy stuff. How do you guys? This is going to be like a crazy thing. How would you guys feel if they added raids into Diablo, like a 3-person boss or a 5-person boss, like world bosses, but they're harder?
I'd love it, and I'd love to see world bosses being harder. I think they're really cool. And like, we did the first one that we did, which was Avarice, and we were super under level. We weren't ready for it at all. Yeah. It was actually pretty hard. And like, somebody in our party didn't have a cheat death potion, was staying out of the zone. I almost got one shot instantly because I didn't know how Avarice fought, and I wish they were a little bit harder.
Staying out of the zone doesn't seem very hardcore. I mean,
no, it was full bitch mode, but
personally, I've been skipping world bosses like all the way. I'm just not really interested in doing them because they're like just like not really a big challenge or not really worth my time right now. I think raids would go too far. I think it's important that in Diablo 4 and RPGs in general, like the stuff needs to be soloable. I guess it's fine if you have like maybe group setups that actually take on the something like an Uber boss or so together, and there's like some kind of like reason to do it. But it should also be a solo thing. Like Uber Lilith, that could also be a raid, I guess, so to say, like as a four-player raid. I don't think it needs to be more than 4 players. It probably cannot be more than 4 players. Or maybe it could actually, right? You can have more than, like, if they find a way to like make a raid party, basically, right? That would be okay, but it should still always be also a solo experience.
I think that's one of the biggest things, right? Is like for a lot of people, like playing an ARPG or playing a game like this, they don't want to feel like they have to be in a group, and I think that's why the question is so divisive. I was like kind of curious to hear what you guys have to think about it. I don't know what to think. Like, I would like to see them try out a raid in the seasons, and I hope that's what they do with like these new seasons, is just try out new crazy cool stuff, and if it doesn't work out, then just don't do it again. Right? That's it. It's done.
I would
feel
love
like
to see it.
are, like, a really safe
That's
way.
fair.
To
Yeah. I mean, why not? If it's like an option, I guess, if it's like not required, for you to do it as a solo player, for example, it's just like some extra, then sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd like to see them go big with seasonal content, but games are always going to struggle to keep that balance between like solo play and group play.
Yeah.
I have grown to be a solo player, Andy, SSF, which is kind of how I've been playing it. But to be honest, I like the quasi multiplayer. Like I like Helltide. I like following people around. I don't want to group with them. I don't want to have to deal with them. I don't want to talk to them. No, I don't want any of that.
But it's nice to see them.
Yes, and like the world boss stuff, the same. So I think they're maybe intentionally or maybe by accident kind of hitting a pretty good spot, but still I think they might have to eventually do like an SSF style game mode. But I would still like to have the side by side in an SSF mode. I think that would make it unique and interesting. And especially with like boss content and stuff like that, if they do, because if you're playing SSF and you're doing boss content, you're like forced into the raid finder situation. I think that is its own chaos. I'd love to try.
Yeah, I'd love to talk more about that. Actually, I really hope they put it in SSF mode.
I've actually been discussing this as well lately, SSF mode and how it could work. It could be literally as simple as just like an SSF tag when you make a character, and you just have this tag or like a different colored name or something like that just indicates your SSF, and that's it, right? You don't group, you don't trade, that's it.
Yeah.
And you have like make your own stash with that character maybe. So and then you can break it at any time, but you're still on the same server. You see the people running around, but you can't manipulate anything. You can't do like this, group strategies. You can't do like resetting with groups. You can't farm with groups. You just see people here and there, and it's okay. It doesn't really break this immersion of like this SSF flow. Seeing someone in a Helltide, right? It's just kind of like maybe you're gonna reach an event here and there in the right moment, sure, but it doesn't really give you an advantage in the grand scheme of things that other people would not also get sometimes, right? So this is like the main thing, I guess, about SSF.
Even if you can't see anyone in the world, I think that would be fine too.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I don't think they're gonna make like servers for every single player that plays SSF, right? It would probably be crazy. So this is like the main reason why they're probably not gonna make something like that. It's just the cost, I guess, of the servers. So like having other people running around in the same shard, even if they're not SSF tagged, it's I think that would be totally fine.
Yeah,
I would like that. Yeah, I mean, like just to have it be in the game, because I know a lot of people like playing solo self-found, so it's like, why not give them the ability to play the game the way they want?
Yeah.
Right. I think that's one of the main things to me, is like just give people the ability to do what they want to do in the game rather than like trying to like force a certain play style.
It's so fun for competitive stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. Especially for competitions, for races, for leaderboards eventually. And like there, it will really matter to have this SSF, like, a verification of SSF, because, basically most of the competitions are going to be based around solo play probably, because it's just like the most, skill expressive mode to play, I guess. And so, and also like just most people just don't even have access to like a team that, they could actually group up with. So I think like something like that needs to happen for like the long term like high end, especially I guess, of players that
So
want
like
to be.
maintain integrity, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that very often can happen, and why like group play started like dying off a little bit in competitions in Path of Exile, was because especially in PoE where trading is so imperative, it would just become a popularity contest between streamers, right? It's like, okay, I found a mage blood, here you goes is. It's like that's not very fun. Whereas in SSF, it's entirely merit based.
Yes.
And surprisingly very little RNG, right? We very rarely see in Path of Exile any race be decided by well, he just got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it would be similar in D4 as well, right? If you do like a race, there could be like many race modes, right? You could also like have some mid-season race of like, 1-2 Torment unlock, for example, right? Or something like that. And you can just, have like an SSF character and then you stream it all the way and, like the fastest wins. Easy clap. So,
Yep.
but with no SSF, we can't do that, right? Because you can't verify. And that's a big problem. So,
yeah.
Well, also, like, it hasn't really picked up yet because I think the top end doesn't have that much of a requirement in terms of, like, you don't really need to have a 100% perfect character. But with no robust trading system in the game, can you even imagine the advantages of a streamer? It's like you can trade a rare item. Like, viewers just find the perfect rare items. You just slap the legendary aspect you want on it. You basically get best in slot gear. So.
I feel like if somebody
that might
does
be okay
that, like
if there was a robust trading system in the game, but there's literally nothing. Literally nothing. So
I actually had people come to me like it's literally trade me in town, and they're like putting some items into a trade window, and I was like, "Yeah, no, thank you." Like, so
halt.
Halt. Yeah.
I'll be honest, Diablo is like one of the only games that I don't take free shit in. Because it's like in an ARPG, that's the only, like, that's the game, Like, if you're going to take free stuff in an ARPG, what's the point,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. I really hope.
Disappointed in you, Asmon. I'm disappointed.
Yeah. Well, I will whenever I make other characters to show different.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. But that's I'm doing that for the community, right? So it's totally different.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Let's see. I want to talk about the UI and like things like just dash tabs, search features. Like that's been driving me insane. Like even after my first character hit 100, I was like, man, this is going to be a problem. Now my second character is about to hit 100. I had to cull, like I'd start culling good items and just like, yeah, that's crazy.
I have 5 mules. It's 2023. I'm playing a new Diablo release and I have 5 mules.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, there's been a lot of tinfoil hat theories. People have been like, do you think they're doing this to see if it'll be acceptable to sell stash tabs? And I'm like, surely they would get a lot of backlash, right? It's a $70 game. Like, it's kind of accessible in PoE because...
Just like Diablo Immortal, that backlash, that was
very different audience, though.
Hundreds of millions of dollars of backlash.
It's a very different audience.
I'm not
the
sure
backlash
if
they're afraid of is from their shareholders, dude. Like their shareholders, they're gonna be just fine with paid stash tabs. I tell you that.
Yeah, I don't think they can realistically sell stash tabs. I think they have to be free. So if they make extra stash, then it has to be like unlockable or something. They did it in D3, for example. You play a season with the season challengers, and then you get a stash tab. You can do this 5 times. So I think it's gonna be maybe something like that where it expands. I don't really think they're gonna do like the PoE way with selling stash tabs. That would probably be too much.
I wish they would just sell it for gold.
They're definitely selling stash tabs for money. Okay.
Well,
what are you guys on about? Are you serious?
I am so afraid of that because I bet a guy in my stream $500 that they wouldn't do that.
Ooh,
they're definitely doing that.
I am so nervous.
If I had money in Blizzard stock, I would be upset if they didn't. Okay, that's where I'm at. You're losing your money, Asma. Like it's just a matter of time, and I think you're losing it soon.
How are you going to recover from this setback?
I don't know. I have to go on my main channel or something, farm more subs. Yeah, I have to take a deal from Kick. Apparently, those are paying pretty
well.
But let's go back to the topic of like the stash in general, I guess. I mean, the stash is obviously awful, right? It's like way too small. It has no search. I mean, these are like obvious issues that
the
everyone
search
saw
is
coming.
so bad.
Even stuck at my level 20 character in the beta, you know, like
Mm.
playing like 2 or 3 different classes, I already had so much shit in my stash. And well, now I have level 100 character. I have like, you know, a bunch of like perfect rolls of aspects there, like saved up in case I need an upgrade. And then I have like a bunch of like, you know, base items that I may or may not want to use for like pushing or for some other build or for selling. And you just don't have any space for any of that, right? I play like one character, my entire stash is full, and I'm really, really selective about what I put in there. So
Yeah,
I think it's fine that there's a bit of a decision making, but especially the aspects are a huge problem.
Yeah.
So
I'd say the sigils.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
consumables and sigils being in the same tab, I'm like, dude, hello?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, that is like
ugh.
that. I mean, it can be easily fixed, I guess, right? I can just literally make like a sigil inventory, and then, you know, at least have like some extra space there, and it doesn't get mixed together, right? So it can like kind of like organize it. Like I like to organize my sigils on the fly, so I put like, you know, the ones I want to run like in the bottom left corner or in the bottom right corner, and then
What I did too.
I kind of like put them like, you know, in order of like the way I want to run them, kind of. So with this inventory, we have the elixirs in there as well, and you have like these 50 different elixirs, right? If you farm Helltide, you get like all these elixirs, and they just clutter everything, man. It's horrible. So
Elixir tab. Yep. Nightmare sigil tab. Aspect tab.
Yeah.
Bottomless sigil tab. Oh my!
How much are we buying this for, Krip?
Yeah.
The problem of Nightmare Sigils is so bad that when they're going to charge for a stash tab, you're not even going to feel bad to buy it. Like I'm telling you, this is like a perfect layup. Okay, we're getting laid up right now. This is a combo move. Okay?
Create the problem, sell the solution. Hey,
it's done so exquisitely. You know, we really have to appreciate this moment in the hustle.
Well, I mean, the thing is that I guess the problem just comes out of the game design, and I don't think that like they actively designed the stash in a bad way. Like, I mean, if you just had more stash space, it would still be a struggle to handle all this stuff, I think. So more space is not the solution necessarily. It would be like a map tab, like in PoE, right? Or it would be, you know, like a currency tab, like in PoE or something. Like we have like certain fixed slots for certain things. You know, you have like your elixir of this and elixir of that and elixir here. You know, like if the elixir tab. So, you know, if they actually do like PoE style specialized tabs, then yeah, I think they're just like actually dealing with the problem, and they're not necessarily just selling a solution. So I think the problem just arose from the game they made. But okay, I mean, it's just me.
I have another thing to say that I actually brought this up in my original review that was driving me crazy, even just playing level 25. When you hover over items quickly, you can't see their stats because they have this like transition thing. I'm not even that fast of a reader, but the thing drives me crazy. So when I'm trying to look at the Nightmare Sigils, I can't even hover through them at a proper speed because I literally have to slow down. You have to go 20 miles an hour on this road. That's like double lane, and no, 20 miles an hour. That's it, right? It's like next item. Oh, I think that one was 3 items ago. No, it was this one. It's oh my god. If it's too slow for me, it's a problem.
I want to be able to see stats on items that are on the ground. Just like then I can and honestly, I want some sort of basic item filter, like where at least because at the moment I don't care at all about sacred items. Like if I don't care about gold, I'm only picking up ancestral, and usually only picking up for a few items that I care about as well. If I'm trying to go fast, like the fact that the game launched without a basic item filter is crazy to me.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always leaving items on the ground or like constantly paying attention to like try to read everything that I'm walking by.
Yeah. I think there's like sometimes so much loot, like we talked about the density and like these large monster packs, and like sometimes you go in there, you blow up like 5 elites, and then there's like, you know, 10 yellow items on the ground.
Yeah.
And I click on a bunch of things that say ancestral and move on.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe number one is like there's maybe too much loot. Number two, yeah, like the item filter is absolutely needed.
Yeah.
Like especially it's not just a basic filter of like, okay, leaving out sacred and blue items or something.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
white items.
Yeah, exactly, white items. But at, you know, at level 80, 90 or so, like your gear is kind of like in a good spot, right? And an upgrade is going to be like a 1 in 1,000 drop or so. Like, why can I not just say, okay, I want at least, you know, 2 out of those 4 stats on my piece, and then maybe highlight it some way, you know, right? Like, why do I have to look at 1,000 items or 1,000 chest pieces to maybe have a chance to get like an upgrade? Like everything is trash besides this one in the 1,000 drop. So why can't I just like say, okay, I want that, right, and like highlight it for me? It doesn't have to be like filter out everything else. It's just it drops in like a green color or whatever, right? So that the stuff that I want to see actually is like highlighted maybe in some way.
That is something Last Epoch does exceptionally well. They have like an amazing in-game item filter where you can like just very customizable, very easy to use, and you build it alongside your character. Like really good.
Yeah, I think that's like definitely needed. At least like once more and more people start reaching later stages of the game, they're gonna run exactly into those problems that we discussed here, because well, we are blasters and we have seen like with level 200 and stuff, like we have seen this problem, but most people have not, and it's gonna become very evident very soon for a lot of people. I think that once they approach level 100, you're just gonna have so much trash, and then the fact that you cannot even sell all to the vendor and you have to like sell them one by one or mark them one by one, there's not even a sell all button, because you don't salvage items, you just sell them. So
yeah,
it's just so backwards that this mark as junk. It needs to be exactly reverse, I think. Like I want to mark the item I don't want to sell because everything else is trash anyway. Like 999
exactly.
items are trash. It's like,
yeah,
I know that everything is trash. So why do you need to tell the game that it's trash?
Yeah, instead of the junk feature, I'd want the opposite of that. Like, spare this item feature.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This is how it should work, in my opinion.
No,
It's
that's
just like
I don't know if you talked about this because I had to step off for a second. But there's a cap on materials that I hit.
Yeah.
Did you cover that?
No, we didn't.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like, there's a lot of loot that's like auto pickup, and one of them is like leather or something. There's a lot of leather that drops. You just don't really.
They are increasing that though. They did say that on the podcast.
Okay, yeah. So
they're
it hits 10,000, and you can't drop it. You can only upgrade the leather to the other leather 20 at a time.
Oh yeah, and it costs gold too, doesn't it?
No. And it's not like one
different?
click for
Okay.
20. No. You have to click, hover over their 1, type in the 20,
Oh no.
enter, click OK. And that's the only way you can lower it from 10,000. Okay, you're gonna have this problem, Asmo, pretty soon. Trust me.
Oh, good.
Yes. And yeah, you have to do this to lower it, or else it clutters your screen, because there's some instances where leather drops off like every mob. Like if you do like the one like the trees and the animals, every single animal drops like some leather. So your screen is entirely leather if you don't do this crafting 20 at a time when you have your cap of 10,000.
Okay, in season 2 it'll be 11,000.
Yeah, they'll fix it. We're listening to you.
They are increasing it. No, I was very happy with the podcast today, to be honest. It also felt a lot more natural and just nice. I liked it.
Oh, I love doing these. These are totally good with me. I'm always down to come on and talk about the game, especially whenever it seems like the best thing about it is the fact that it seems like they're listening, right?
Oh,
so
no,
it's like
I meant the dev podcast. Like this is great too, but I meant the dev one.
I thought you meant that. Yeah, no, that's the same fucking thing. I say the same thing. Exactly.
Yeah. But both are good.
Wait, did you watch it, Asmon? Or
I was asleep. I read all the notes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it whenever I go online.
Yeah. No, it was really good. Are you gonna react to this podcast again afterwards?
No, I'll probably tell everybody that's on, because it'll probably be on your channel, right?
Yeah, I was just joking.
Yeah. It depends. Yeah.
See, I don't know. Do you guys want to talk about the story? I know, like, obviously that's spoilers for some people who are still doing it.
That would be spoilers for me, because I actually hit escape on every single conversation and cutscene.
Okay.
I've actually not
crazy
seen
shit does
anything.
happen.
I haven't seen a single thing about the actual game.
That's fair. We can skip talking about the story.
And just to be clear, I know I had like access in the review beta or whatever. I skipped those too. I have never seen any cutscene or I've never seen it.
Are you
So you
ever
never
going
even
to?
watched like the full cutscenes?
It's just I'm doing the campaign at a time where I'm so sick of like NPCs giving me forced conversation pieces where I'm just completely done with it. Like I just want to play the game. If the cutscenes of every other quest was basically 0, I'd definitely watch all the campaign and stuff, the trailers and stuff.
There are
It's just
actually
like
cutscene YouTube videos.
brutally excessive for me.
Yeah, there are actually like cutscene YouTube videos. But so what I was doing was I went through the campaign on my second character, and I actually died. I was looking at chat, and I mistook my own poison trap. I thought it was my own poison trap for like 4 green explosions. I was like, oh, that's mine. I'm good, huh? And then just ghost. It was like level 20 or something. And then I was like, do I really want to go do that again? So what I did after that was I watched the last of the cinematics on a YouTube video. It was really good.
I was happy about the story. I hope they add in more content for the story because I think that keeps people engaged, right? There's like all the people that are like posting about it on Twitter and stuff. Because like it's definitely that thing that like everybody who is like more of a casual player, that's what they do a lot. You know, they know all about the story or something like that because that's like their main content.
Yeah, I think it would be not so bad. Like, it's like very clear that they're like setting up the story for like, the expansion where, we're going to meet Mephisto and all that, I guess, at some point, right? And, well, maybe they're going to even put Diablo into a Diablo game. Who knows? So, yeah, I think that maybe they have like some slight, like kind of content strategy with that, where like, every season or maybe every 2 seasons, they could give like a little tidbit that kind of like builds up to that expansion. That would be great, I think, to kind of like move it forward slightly, and then you have like the big, content drop on the expansion.
I want to pitch my story theory from Diablo 3. Again, I have not seen anything from Diablo 4, but Diablo 3 before the expansion content ended with the thing in the forehead, the soul stone. It just kind of drops from the clouds, and then that's it, right? Where does it go?
No,
that's a good question, right? Well. Who died in Diablo 3? Cain. What if, from the clouds, it just happens to drop through the clouds on the ground and exactly where Cain is buried in his forehead?
Okay.
Stay a
and it like
while and listen.
it resurrects Deckard Cain as Diablo himself.
Exactly. That's
great story.
I mean,
well, you got a lot of loose ends, right? And I want Cain back in my game, so I don't see a problem with it.
I do want Cain back too. I don't care how they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, and nothing short of time travel can really bring Deckard Cain back, I guess, at this point. I mean,
he could come back as a
don't
ghost.
we have necromancers?
I mean, the thing is that the whole story is like set like what is it, like half a century after D3 or something. I mean, that's a long time. He was already kind of an old, frail man.
Yeah, he could be a ghost, like Sultan Cole.
Yeah, maybe.
Star Wars.
Qui-Gon.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be good.
Yeah, no, I think that they could do that. I mean, like, they kind of brought back, or they didn't really bring back, but I felt like did you guys ever play Diablo Immortals, like, storyline?
No.
Just to do it?
No.
I did. I did.
I played 2
hours. The next step in my story was level 6 times, and I'm like, okay, bye.
Yeah. Do you guys think that Diablo 4 is going to be pay to win in the future?
By my definition, definitely. Like, I consider Path of Exile for its dash tabs pay to win. So absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, no, I don't think so. And I mean, they have also at many occasions, said very strictly there's no pay to win, and there will never be pay to win. I mean, we have this like, we have the post, they said that. I don't think they can really like backpedal from that in any way. Like if they ever do that, burn.
It would be really fun.
They got 10 character slots, dude. They got 10 character slots. Okay, like,
yeah.
Come on.
I mean, I do have to say it would be fun to see, but on the other hand, obviously, I don't want them to ruin the game. So pay to win cannot exist in this game. Like this.
Okay, but that's going to be a big semantic difference, right? Because then they're going to be like, well, we're not selling power, we're selling quality of life, we're selling stash tabs, we're selling character slots, we're selling a map overlay. Like, I think there'll be a semantic difference.
I mean, okay. I mean, you can always like argue: is this like a really pay to win? It's like more stash space. Is it like winning more? Like, can you actually translate more stash space into getting a rank 1 in a competition?
Yes,
probably. But not really. I guess depends on the competition. I guess so. It's like yeah, there are definitely some kind of gray areas with that. I guess if they sell stash tabs or if they sell character slots,
Yeah.
but
Also,
it's not like the immortal style pay to win where you actually gain power. So this is like the most important part.
so,
I mean,
But I agree.
are-
It'd be nice
there
if
are-
they don't sell anything and it's like unlockable in the game.
yeah.
I'm not sure if the guy in chat is correct, but somebody's saying they never said there won't be pay to win. They said it won't be pay for power. So
Uh-oh.
I don't even know the exact wording.
You know who does though? Blizzard Legal. They know the exact wording pretty well, I think.
Yeah, Bobby Kotick. That's what they said.
Ah,
That's
yeah.
good. I mean, we'll see, I guess. But realistically, I like if they ever do anything like that, I don't think
Yeah.
it will really go beyond something like character slots and stash tabs. I think they cannot do anything outside of that in terms of like selling stuff to people. Already that would be, that would already produce like outrage. I think.
Oh, people will be furious.
I don't think it will as much. I think if they deliver a good quality game, they can ding people constantly. And I still have the faith that they can do that over a long period of time. But I think 5 years from now, there's going to be such advanced stash tabs in this game where like your nightmare glyphs automatically go there and you can index it when you're in the world and click it and teleport to a nightmare dungeon, and the guy who hasn't bought those stash tabs is using one of his 4 free ones for like a quarter of his glyphs among his mules. Okay, like that's where we're gonna be at. I'm sure of it.
Like the poor people that only spent $70 on the game.
Well, no, that's
Yeah.
before the expansions. No.
Oh,
that's-
right, yeah, because you get
Yeah,
the bonus
yeah.
pack and it's only $120.
Yeah, I like it's very frustrating. I'm very frustrated with where like monetization in games is going with things like early start and stuff too, right? I think even within like 5 years, we're gonna see like bronze queue, silver queue, platinum queue. It's like as a platinum queue user, if you're not able to log into the server, we will kick a bronze queue user off the server so you're able to play.
I would be
What?
outraged and instantly
Yeah.
buy that feature at the same time.
Yeah, I can't believe this. This is awful. How much is it?
Oh, I hit it.
That's not
Yeah.
even a question to ask. It's like,
Oh, people in Lost Ark, and the thing is, Lost Ark, you can literally buy gold and then buy upgrades with the gold, and then the upgrades make your character do more damage. And people still find ways to be like, oh, it's not really pay to win. I mean, because you can die in a boss fight. So I mean, there are people that have paid money and they didn't win.
And that exact time is what I'm moving away from the statement pay to win. I'm like trying to beeline towards
Yeah.
it. So I'm going towards if anything alters your game experience, then it's not cosmetic. And even cosmetics can be pay to win, right? I think even in League of Legends, there's some skins that are banned from competitive play because they give some form of advantage.
Yeah, they should do that in PvE too, by the way.
Yeah,
some of those like
there already is.
Kirak Vault Pass things, like you can see your flask being active and your Val skill charging. I mean, these are actually mildly
some of
competitive
those
advantages.
Some of those aren't that interesting, but there's one where I can't remember what it is. There's something about fast charges come towards you from monsters, so you can see when you've killed things off screen. Things like that can very easily be pay to win, but still, like at least for me,
is there anything else? I need to take notes. Anything else that's pay to win in
There's
Path of
one thing
Exile?
that's pay to lose, and that's the Righteous Fire Shaper cosmetic.
Yes.
Because whenever I played, that obscured different ground effects, and I fucking died
Yep.
because of that fucking microtransaction. So yeah, don't get that one.
Yeah, but like
But it looks fancy though. Yeah.
it started
does
with
look
me
really
because I
cool.
had a friend of
Just
mine
make a
be
good
like,
character.
it started for me because a friend of mine was like, Ziz, you need to try Black Desert Online. I was like, okay, cool. Is there any pay to win in it? He was like, no, there's no pay to win in Black Desert. And I was like, oh, sick.
What?
Let's try it. So
Sick.
I download Black Desert. And literally the minute I launched the game, he's like, okay, now open up the store and buy a pet. And I'm like, the fuck?
Yeah, loots things for you. It makes it easier and faster.
And
That
he
way
was
we can
like,
play
well, you
together.
don't really need it. And I was like, oh, okay, so I shouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you need to. I'm like, you motherfucker. So I don't trust people anymore. Now I have trust issues. So now I've started being very like I'm very semantically aware now. I'm like, does it alter your game experience? If I spend $1,000 and you spend $0, do we have the same experience? And it's like pretty much just Fortnite left, right? That's like true in. No, I did not buy the pet.
I did. I played that game a lot, and then I realized that I couldn't play it 16 hours a day, and I quit the game because it wasn't worth playing only 10 hours a day.
Well,
It was a good game, but it's like, yeah, like that pay to win stuff, like it's just I feel like anything that you have that's like that, there's like no sense of like satisfaction in it. Like I feel the same way about like store cosmetics in Diablo 4. Like a lot of people are like really critical about how much they are. I'll be honest, I don't care because I'm never gonna buy them. Right? It doesn't matter. It's just a cosmetic piece of bullshit that doesn't make a
yeah.
difference.
I have to go overboard on this.
Okay.
I think they should make cosmetics, some of them, way more expensive. Like, why not make like some $10,000 boots? Like, who gives a shit? Okay, few people are gonna buy it because they're $10,000 boots, and I'm totally fine with that.
Well, and you can, and they'll feel good about that too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not like they'll feel like a loser or anything.
I actually
They need more of those cosmetics, in my opinion.
I actually have a similar take. So like when a game has cosmetic monetization, that's the sort of monetization that I do want to promote because I want everybody to have an equal playing field gameplay wise, right? That's the most important thing to me. And I still think the devs deserve to monetize. They should make a lot of money, and cosmetic monetization, even if it sometimes can be pay to win, it's still the most mild form of anything, right? Some visual increases. So for cosmetics, they should charge whatever makes the company the most amount of money. Is that $3 and have it literally everybody buy it? That's great. Is that one being $3,000? That's great, right? Because as long as the company is financially motivated to do updates, I get more content. Whereas like it's so important to me that everybody's on the same equal side gameplay wise.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, for example, I did play Immortal, and I did it completely free to play. I played it for like a month, and then I quit. And like my goal was to become immortal. And what? What do you mean? What?
I said a month.
A month, yeah, maybe a bit less. I don't know exactly. It was like a few weeks. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, basically we hit immortal, and I did legend in PvP, and then I quit. So because I was done and I had kind of like peaked, so to say, and I didn't want to continue anymore. It was just like way too crazy with everything that was going on. Like I hated the pay to win, and I will hate it if it ever comes to Diablo 4. I will hate it even more, I guess, because of how good of a game I think it is, and how much better it can become, and how much worse it can become with pay to win.
Yeah.
So it's definitely important that they stay away from that for the good of the game.
And the annoying thing about pay to win is that it incentivizes whoever's making and selling the game and profiting from the game to create problems and then sell the solutions.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like this argument you can make. Do they create the problem on purpose? Do they actually create this problem of your nightmare sigils? Just being like randomly thrown in your stash versus selling a nightmare sigil tab. I don't think that, for example, PoE did that on purpose as well, right? It had literally the same problem, right? You had maps, and then people realized, well, this stash system sucks for maps, right? And then they made a map tab, right? And then they started thinking about, what else could we do? Currency, that seems kind of nice. Everything goes in the right place. And it just kind of like was built over time. And I guess a similar thing might happen here. So if they sell these tabs, or if they just give them for free or make them unlockable, I mean, yeah. Eventually, we're gonna have specialized stash tabs. I'm pretty sure.
There's got to be some middle ground here. Like Woody's right. Like if PoE didn't sell stash tabs, there's no way they would be as good as they are. Like that feature is better because it's a paid feature.
Yeah,
that is also
I agree
true.
with
I guess.
that. Definitely.
it's also like, at least for me, like I personally call Path of Exile pay to win, but I would give it like a 2 out of 10 pay to win, right? Because the big difference is, if you ask me, Ziz, if I spend $1,000 and you spend $0, do you have a big difference? Like, well, not really past like $40 to $60, right? Which is pretty fair. And that's how I treat like all games I play. Like,
and that's a one-time payment.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is the game trying to get anywhere from like 20 to 80, maybe even $100, right, out of me? Then I'm like, okay, that's fine. Is the game trying to juice me for like $300 to $2,000? I don't love that. I don't love that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's like capped at like a very reasonably small amount, right? Like a 2-digit amount, let's say.
Yeah.
Like the typical game price. Like this is like you cannot really be angry about this, right?
Yeah.
Like PoE is such a massive game, and it's totally fine. It's like literally like down to the game price. It's like the argument that you always have to to also give to people that say that Path of Exile is like, oh, pay to win, blah blah. But realistically, it's not, right? Like,
Yeah.
reality of pay to win does not exist in Path of Exile
Yeah.
outside of RNT, so it's like a different story.
Yeah, of course.
The bad thing about pay to win is whenever somebody who spends $100 is weaker than somebody that spends $1,000,
Yeah.
and the guy $1,000 is weaker than the guy that spends $10,000. That is never pay to win is really bad. I don't really mind, like, especially in a free to play game, having to do like a one-time purchase or like a battle pass type thing that you buy once per season, because like you're effectively buying like anything that functions effectively the same as like a sub fee, like in World of Warcraft. I don't mind.
Yeah, that is definitely how I would see it too. Like, I wouldn't mind, like I play Diablo 10 hours a day. I can pay $10 a month if I have to, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think like a lot of people that kind of like like the game enough to play it enough, it's just like such a small like fee, so to say. And I mean, WoW has been doing this successfully for like almost 2 decades, right? And this is how it is. And WoW was a better game for it because of the money that Blizzard earned from it.
Absolutely. How much do you think the expansions are going to be?
Probably $60. And there's going to be a deluxe package, and there's going to be an Omega deluxe package, and then there's going to be the early access deluxe package.
Do you think there'll be early access on that too?
Okay. So here's the thing. If I think early access is cheesy and it's stupid and it's unfair and I don't like it. But if I ever made a video game, I would do it.
Aren't you making a video game?
No, I'm just publishing.
Well, yeah, I think like around 50, 60 is probably reasonable like to expect for an expansion, and the deluxe stuff, of course, is gonna happen. If the early access happens again, who knows? I mean, it has kind of worked out for this launch with early access, and I figured that when it comes to like racing and stuff, anyone who would care about that will just get it, and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't really see this as like some major competitive problem or something like that. So yeah, whatever.
It's mainly just annoying.
I hate it.
I feel like Diablo 4's upfront cost was uncomfortably high, and they made an insane amount of money. So the expansion for Diablo 4 will cost more than $60. I don't know how much it's going to cost, but it's going to cost more than that.
I would not.
It's going to be like, oh my god, that's a lot. That's how much it's going to cost.
Surely it can't be like $70 for an expansion to the game. So the game is $70, and then the expansion.
I mean, you say it can't, but like their bottom line is pretty good.
Not?
The shareholders are happy right now. So
I would have expected it would be 30, 40. So
Yeah.
clearly I'm very naive here.
So what year is this?
2 years from now. A year from now. 2 years from now.
Yeah. If it was 10 years ago, maybe it would be 30 or 40.
I'm naive here.
I'd be very surprised to see over 50.
So for Dragonflight in WoW, I think that they sold like versions of Dragonflight. Somebody can correct me in chat if I'm wrong, for like $90, and that is an expansion that has a monthly sub fee.
I need some copium.
Yeah.
He's used it all up, poor Ziz.
Oh yeah, I fully expect to see like the expansions cost a good amount of money, but it probably, as long as the game doesn't have like the unlimited types of pay to win that like Diablo Immortal had, like I'm amazed that you got Immortal, man. Like I thought that like there was no way a free to play player could hit Immortal.
I mean, I didn't do it alone, of course, and I also had people that were also kind of like carrying through their pay to win and all that stuff. So it wasn't just me being immortal suddenly as my own achievement, right? But it kind of like worked out basically, and we managed to win it. And then I was like really focused on PvP. I actually really enjoyed Immortal PvP, I gotta say. And especially like this uphill grind of being free to play versus on the high ratings, you had like a lot of whales and a lot of like really like kind
that's
of
every game though that's pay to win.
It was really really tough, especially towards the end, like close to the legend rank. It was really rough. But yeah, I kind of like just grinded my way through. It was a fun experience. But then once I was done with that, I uninstalled. Basically, that was it. So
Yeah.
goodbye.
the game.
Because it was just like way too
Catch
crazy.
whales
And
with
like,
a spear.
yeah, you didn't notice it so much in like week 1, week 2 of Immortal. Like, I was just like blasting, grinding, and it was more about the time investment advantage that I had from just playing so much.
Mhm.
So it wasn't so obvious that I was so weak compared to other people. But then,
Right.
basically like after like 1-2 weeks, you really felt the difference where people just like were wailing straight past you basically. And then it was a pretty weird experience, to be honest. But on the other
My
hand, it was,
understanding of Immortal is that it's completely unacceptable to leverage time investment. I don't think that's how that game works.
yeah, it has a lot of caps and all that stuff. If you mean that, what do you mean exactly?
Like time investment was always capped, always suppressed, always.
Yeah,
That's how it
Yeah.
is. It's like you're literally you're getting cooked. Like you've got one of those chastity belts on, and you can only take it off for like an hour a day, and then the
Oh my
entire rest
God.
of the day. It's how it is. Every game has like these energy systems. It's crazy. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, it does have the energy system, and you
Yeah.
can still grind stuff, right? But yeah, it's like massively disincentivized.
I hate
Yeah.
time gating and daily. It's like the only game I've ever enjoyed a daily in is Tarkov.
Mhm.
Frustrating. What do you guys think are going to be the first new classes we're going to see?
100% paladin.
Yeah, I'm
That's my
going
guess.
Paladin.
Yeah, I think that Paladin is like really the number one choice. It's like the holy class that's missing, basically, right?
Yeah.
But
Personally,
tank
I would
class
like
is
to.
missing too. There's no tank class.
Yeah, true. They don't
could
have
be
like barbarians
Crusader.
with shields. They should give like barbarians shields in an expansion or something, and some shield skills. I mean, that'll be cool too.
Hmm.
But yeah, Paladin like, with shield, I think that's very, very likely, or something like Paladin, right?
Hmm.
I would like to
Yeah.
see a Witch Doctor though. I think that, like after Paladin, a Witch Doctor would be amazing in D4. I
Amazon.
think that's Amazon, yeah, but you have like the problem with like the like what is a male Amazon? That's
Oh yeah.
So I
Apparently,
don't think
they
we're gonna see
said
some.
that it won't be an old class, but I don't know how far-reaching that really is. Like you can slap on a name and get a different theme on it.
I feel like
It
it
could be
has to be like,
Paladini.
yeah, you've got to have like like some sort of like holy damage class. I mean, we have a necromancer. Like, I mean, there's like a massive, like the whole story is based around effectively paladins and like sacred
Well,
energy users.
it could be a fallen paladin. Because I think a
Like
lot of the
Death
like
Knight?
It'd be like an archangel or something.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Oh,
But like a lot of
crazy.
the religious stuff was like killed, right? Like they're pretty gone for the
Yeah,
most
I
part.
think one thing I would think would be really cool if it was like some kind of like more holy caster and not like a holy knight. So like something like a cleric, one of these cultists, or something like that. That could
Like
be
an
really
inquisitor.
Yeah, Inquisitor, exactly. Something like
Yeah.
that. Because I think that in Diablo 4 right now, with like the distribution of classes, basically every class has like melee specs, at least to some degree. We have Arclash even on Sorc, and we have like the Sever stuff on Necro. Rogue is like half melee and mostly melee. Barb is entirely melee. Druid is like a lot of melee. So having like a Paladin added to the mix is just yet another melee class, basically, with maybe very little like range capabilities. And I think we definitely need more like ranged and more casters. And even though Paladin would be cool and all, and it's like some old fan favorite, I don't want to just like spam hammers all day long. I want to have like a real caster that would be cool with like some like real like holy fantasy.
Asmon hasn't played D2. He's thinking of maybe spamming some hammers, seeing what this is all about.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've never played it. I want to try out Diablo 2.
okay.
You can give the hammers a try. You cannot go wrong with hammers in Diablo 2.
I hated hammers. That's like the only
Yes.
one.
Yeah, I hate it too. Like it's not that I don't want Paladin in D4 because I hate hammers, but I think that it's just like such a big variety of melee playstyles already in the game that we don't need yet another full like melee
That's
class.
fair.
So,
Huh.
but yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting. All right. I mean, we've got a little over 2 hours. I figured we'll do the last topic, like talk about people's favorite things in Diablo 4 that they like the most.
Okay.
Wrap up with something positive. Asmon, do you want to go first?
My favorite thing is I like being able to go in and just use Whirlwind and kill all the mobs at the same time. It's the same thing I liked about Diablo 3, and I'm still able to do it, and I think that's really cool. I like the gameplay. The gameplay is genuinely fun.
Spin to win.
Spin to win. That's all I ever want to do.
Good. Right.
I actually kind of want to say the same thing, just more broadly. I think their class identity is very good. Like a Sork feels like you're doing some things like far too powerful. Like Sork is like all about crowd control, and if you don't think so, try to do damage without it. You ain't going to, right? So like Sork is like a master of like really BS abilities, but they're really short. Or you can extend really long crowd control on your enemies. So it's like a very sorcery type of thing, like some really powerful spells. Even though, yeah, the damage is lacking, but I think that's fine. I think a class that excels in crowd control and immunities probably shouldn't do quite the same damage of a class that doesn't have those things. And I think Necro has a really good identity. I think people got so tired of complaining about minions they forgot to even try them. I think Necro really does excel as a summoner and as like a death dealer, death knight type of playstyle. I mean, Barb's like shout, so I guess that. But yeah, I mean, I think in general the class identity is very good. Like it's actually exceptional. Maybe some of the best for an ARPG.
Nice. Woody?
Yeah, I totally agree with the points that Asmon and Krip are making already about the gameplay and the class identity. Maybe to add to that, I like the build crafting. So a lot of people are complaining like the skill tree is so small and the paragons look so basic. But basically, leading up to the 4 launch, all I was doing was Diablo 4 planner streams, literally for months. Like I was sitting here every night, like 5 hours plus, crafting builds, and I enjoyed it so much. And I have like a catalog of like 100 builds or something that I want to play at some point. And I like the variety. I like the choices you can make. I like that there's actually a lot of like it's actually fairly balanced in many cases at least. The balance is not perfect, but there are very often these choices where I can slot on this skill and that skill instead of this and that one, and suddenly have kind of like a similar play style, but it's completely different at the same time because you use like 2 different utility skills, or you can like swap around this offense or this defensive part, and I'm having a really good time just experimenting. Like for example, now when I was actually playing my rogue, I was like, I was doing like a rogue with like a completely different key passive, a different ultimate, a different utility skill, but the same core skill. Like the same core skill can feel so different to play because of those other choices. And that's really one thing I enjoy a lot. Like I can really replay. I could just play rogue for like years at this point and always make a new build. And this is what I like so much right now. It's not just barb spin to win. Basically, you can also do barb spin to win with maybe some other stuff in there, or you can do like 5 different versions of like a double swing barb with shouts or with stomp or with leap and charge and whatever, right? You can have like all these like utility choices, and yeah, they may not always end up exactly being as powerful, but they are generally balanced enough, and I really like that. And that's kind of like keeps the gameplay, like the moment to moment gameplay, very exciting, because whenever I get tired of one thing, I just like unspec something and put something else in and play with that, and it works. That's great.
I agree with a lot of that, and I think what I've been the most impressed with so far about Diablo 4, and I've been sort of going into it, obviously I'm a Path of Exile player, and I've been going into it with the mentality that, well, it isn't Path of Exile, it's a completely different game, and I think it's better for casual players than it is for no-lifers. But what I've been impressed with so far is how well it does with doing a lot with little. Like the Paragon system and the skill tree is a lot more simple than Path of Exiles, but there's actually still a surprising amount of choice there. And the same with the item chase. It's very, very simple and primitive in a way, but it's actually still a very fun item chase. Like my before videos, so before Diablo 4 came out and playing characters level 25, I was shitting hard on the item system, going like, this is going to be dog shit and awful. And I've been very surprised with how good the item chase has been, because on every character I've been looking forward to finding new items. So that's been my favorite thing.
Yeah, I mean, overall, like, I've been very critical of the game, but I've actually really had fun playing it. I mean, like, that's at the end of the day what matters, right? Am I playing the game? The answer to that is absolutely yes.
Yeah.
So I just want to see more content, more stuff added into the game, more ways to play the game. Yeah, just give us more stuff. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. Is there any other topics anyone wanted to talk about or cover before we wrap up?
I'm pretty much chilling. Like I've talked about, I would say pretty much everything I'd want to talk about at least.
Same.
Yeah, I think we discussed a lot of good topics now, and I mean, if you want to repeat something, like with a more specialized podcast or something, I mean,
yeah,
something
I'm always around. Yep.
So there can always be like like the hardcore topic or like the item topic or whatever, right? You can like look up some ideas, but generally I had a good time here, so it was great.
People want Paragon refunds, apparently. I think the Paragon system is more interesting than you're giving credit for. I have to disagree with you a little bit. I think that one of the big things that is like a giga fail is a lot of the glyphs just not working. Like
physical damage
for Sork, for example, there's a glyph that buffs cold nodes. There's a single one on the entire Paragon board, not even two. You can't even buff two. It's cold resist. There's one for lightning, same thing. The one for fire gives you like 10 extra fire damage along the fire resist node. That one actually hits 2 nodes.
To be fair, they could easily just add more as well, though, of the boards, right?
Yeah,
well, they could add more glyphs, but they have to like balance the current glyphs. Yeah. One of the glyphs bonus gives you resistance, 13 resistance for each enchantment on its damage type. So you're getting 26 resistance as its bonus.
All right.
That's like less than 0.1 survivability. Like it's unimaginable.
Well, they'll fix that in season 2.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's just I was expecting it to be very, very primitive. I was expecting it to mostly be focused on stats and some other things. So I've been enjoying it compared to what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
Do you think that you're just enjoying it a lot because the expectations were low? Yeah. Or is it like a objectively nice system, like from your perspective?
I think just with games in the current year, just having low expectations is just always better. I've never known anyone that had high expectations for a game and they were happy.
Elden Ring.
Sure. But
that's the only time.
It's more the exception than the rule. So I think having low expectations is pretty healthy for gaming at the moment.
I unfortunately agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just glad to see the games, like a good game come out that's like actually fun to play, and it's not like massively predatory or it's not this awful thing.
Ooh, the Golem game was really good.
Oh my god! Like that's one of the best things about waking up late in the day is I can just wake up and read Twitter. It's like, is this worth playing? Fuck no.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's good. All right. We can end it there. I love ending with like shout outs. So Zach Rar, where can people find more of your content?
On Twitch, and they can also watch me on YouTube, and just search Asmon Reacts, and you'll find probably everybody on this on this panel.
True.
Yeah.
Krip?
Well, I'm NL_Krip on Twitch, but I'm the only Krip, so it's not that hard to find. And Kripparrian on Twitter and YouTube the same. We also have a second channel. We have Casual Krip, which is not exactly casual. It's just the Clips channel. I'm trying to be the next Asmongold of React Andes.
Nice. Woody?
Yep.
Yeah, well, you can find my name, Wudijo, on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, everywhere. And then we have Maxroll, where I am writing guides, and I'm like the team lead for Diablo 4 for all the guides that we write there. So if you are interested in any kind of like Diablo 4 content and need guidance, then go check that out.
And I'm Zizaran, also sometimes called Zizarian and Zizaran. So I have many names apparently, but yeah, Ziz and yeah, just Zizaran on everything, Twitch, YouTube, and I've now started reacting back to Asmongold, which has been great. So
Good idea. It's smart.
it's really good. It's too
We
broken.
can do like a whole circle maybe or something.
We
you know?
we actually
It's like a
did that
human
once.
centipede.
We did actually do that once. I reacted to him, he reacted to me, I reacted to him reacting to me.
No, I mean, like all of us, like
Oh,
I
right,
react
that'd be
to
even
this,
better.
and then Kurt reacts to that, and then Aslan goes on that.
We're unstoppable.
Exactly.
But
That's
yeah,
the future, guys.
that is the future. All right, we'll end it there. I hope you all enjoyed the podcast. It was a pleasure having you, and thank you for taking time to be on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad
Thanks,
to come
guys.
on whenever and talk about the game.
Was great. Thank you.
Nice.